finally back in Los Angeles, and I haven't had much sleep. All right, so I figure I've had no sleep, couldn't sleep on the plane, so I figure I should do a live stream even before I clean up, before I take a shower, before I put all my stuff away. All right, I'm back in Los Angeles. I figured if I do a live stream when I'm incredibly sleep deprived, there's a very good chance that I'll be more honest. And also, you want to strike while the impressions are hot. So when I was taking the bus to the Sydney airport about 16 hours ago, all right, everything around me looked completely normal because I quickly became acclimatized to Sydney. So everything in Sydney, everything around me looked completely normal. While almost 3 months ago, when I landed in Sydney, I had all these observations that I was firing off on Twitter and Facebook because it was different. So too, I get back to LA and certain things just jump out at me. So the number one thing is how much less comfortable life is in Los Angeles or any big multicultural city in North America, as far as I'm aware. I'm just going to extrapolate out from my own individual experience of flying into LAX. It's just not a terribly comfortable experience. For one thing, half the population in Los Angeles doesn't speak English, right? So when half the people in your city don't speak English, it's not going to be nearly as comfortable a situation. Second, there's much more palpable sense of tension because there's apparently nothing that unites people in Los Angeles. Like, we have nothing in common, right? I have virtually nothing in common with people in Los Angeles most people in Los Angeles who don't speak English. We live in the same approximate geographic area, but what do we share? We can't really communicate. So there are just so many distinctive subcultures, and it's just so multicultural that there's just so much diversity that it just feels like we have nothing in common. Maybe that's just my sleeplessness speaking. Maybe this is just idiosyncratic to me, but that's what jumped out at me as I landed at LAX. Another thing that jumps out at me is that when you go through customs or you deal with the government in America, you frequently seem to be treated or viewed as the enemy, while in Australia, there's much more of a sense that the government is on your side. So much more tension, much less comfort, I noticed arriving back in Los Angeles, and much more fear, right? Because you don't seem to have, a whole heck of a lot in common. And so when people are really unfathomably different from you, such as you can't even speak the same language and you don't have shared cultural experiences, values, aspirations, we're just so different from each other. Like, we just have all these various tribes in Los Angeles. That in and of itself will tend to provoke fear. Then when you have astronomical crime rates, particularly jumping up since 2020, much more of a fearful experience, much more of a sense of being on guard, of having to watch your stuff. So on the plane over from Sydney to LA, I had the great fortune to sit next to this lovely, attractive German woman. And she talked about in Germany, in the big cities, you have to watch your stuff. And she was kind of surprised when she came to Sydney for a few weeks that a friend in Sydney said, no, you don't need to watch your stuff. It's highly unlikely that anyone's going to steal it. So, there's more of a sense of fear, looking around, wondering, who's going to try to rip me off. Also, another thing I'm noticing, don't know if there's any statistical evidence for this, but there seem to be a whole heck of a lot more people in wheelchairs in Los Angeles per capita. So I'm wondering if that's true. And if it is true, why would there be a lot more people in Los Angeles more people in wheelchairs in Los Angeles as compared to Sydney, right? Do I live in Australia permanently? No, I've spent 5 of the last 12 months in Australia, but I live in Los Angeles. But I love getting back to Australia as often as I can. But I'm thinking, if it's true that there are more people in wheelchairs in Los Angeles, and that can be incredibly disruptive for other people. So I'm sure it's its own, trouble being in a wheelchair and trying to navigate streets and sidewalks in Los Angeles that are frequently cracked and messed up. Some wheelchairs, yeah, they have cup holders, but I'm thinking, if it's true that there are far higher percentage of Los Angelinos in wheelchairs than people in Sydney, I'm wondering if it's one, like untreated diabetes, right? People who aren't treating their diabetes, so they lose the function of some of their limbs, such as the lower limbs, such as the feet. Also, added recklessness by certain segments of the population. All right, so we particularly see all sorts of crimes and deaths of exuberance since George Floyd died. So massive increase in traffic deaths and pedestrian deaths, as well as murder and general mayhem in the United States since George Floyd died. So maybe there's a higher percentage of the population that tends to be reckless, and what might go along with that, maybe I'm sure there's a higher percentage of the population that gets severely injured in violence. So I don't know if that jumps out to you if you spend any time in Los Angeles, just all the people who are in wheelchairs, and then that added sense of tension. So as compared to when I lived in Auburn, California, or when I lived in the Napa Valley, there wasn't that palpable sense of tension and fear and not having almost anything in common, all right, with the people around you. That's what jumped out at me. So I don't know if you have this experience with live streamers, but do you ever check out a live stream and they're just coming at you full force? Like, you check out the live stream in the beginning and they're just dropping truth pills. They're dropping wisdom. They're dropping clarity. It's just coming all over you, right? I mean, it's just coming hot and heavy. I mean, it's just a thick load of wisdom that's just covering you. And it's whoa. And you think, wow, this is incredibly intense. I mean, PPP, right? And Andy Worski, I mean, they bring it at such an enormous level of energy and intensity and hype, which I have been too lazy to perform at that level, because when you perform at that level, yes, it's much more compelling, but it's also much harder to think clearly and to not lie. When you hype something, you're lying, right? It's not an out damaging lie, but it is still deceptive. It is a subset of lying. So all right, so you check out the live stream, right? It's just coming at you hot and heavy, and you just feel engorged with the wisdom, with the political insights, the social insights, the self-help tips, the clarity, and then you find the content maker is just kind of dribbling away into being a content taker, right? You tune in to a live streamer to get his perspective, all right, and this content maker. Right, you have some hope at the beginning of the stream. This content maker is going to, make something original, and then the stream just devolves into playing excerpts from 10 other blokes. So the content maker way too often just devolves into the content taker, and they're reading dreary articles, and they're playing clips that half the time are not queued up correctly. Right? And they're doing a live stream pretending, right? That's the premise of what they're doing, that they're giving you something unique and special coming from, their brain, their heart. But really, it's just this melange of other people's content. And I mean, some people don't appreciate getting face blasted on a live stream with, 10 other blokes' content, when the whole pretense is that there's some sort of special relationship going on between you and the live streamer, and they're going to bring their whole self, their heart, their body, their mind, their soul, their religious convictions, their cultural, political convictions, their emotions, it's all going to be poured into the stream. And instead, you're just getting face blasted by 10 other blokes, and then they're playing lengthy excerpts from Fox News, and you think what the hell here, guys? right? I tuned in to get like one distinctive opinion. Like that was the whole premise of this relationship with this live streamer. And this is not what I signed up for. I didn't sign up to be face blasted by 10 randos, all right, with clips that aren't even queued up correctly. Look, I have been able to overcome streaming interruptus because of cranberry extract. I mean, that's how I'm able to give, these long, sustained streams. It's not just dribble, drip, drip, dribble, long, awkward pause, dribble, drip, drip. No, I mean, I take that cranberry extract. I'm able to stream. Right, I'm able to come from the heart. I'm able to tell you something fair dinkum. So anyway, on the plane, I got to sit next to a German woman, young, attractive German woman. And, we get to talking. How do you like Sydney? Where are you from in Germany? What's that big city like? How about that quality of life in Sydney? What do you do? What do I do? And then I talked to her about situationism. I said, this is an idea I'm really excited about, situationism. We started talking about, of course, World War I, World War II, German military history. And I share with her, the insights of John M. Doris into the power of situationism. And I said there was this one German thinker who was incredibly profound on situationism, Carl Schmitt. And she'd never heard of Carl Schmitt. And so I tell her that the sovereign is he who decides the state of exception. All right, that's Carl Schmitt comment. I mean, Carl Schmitt was powerful with the aphorisms, and this girl was so nice. I mean, I think she had a standard deviation in IQ on me, and how could I tell that? Because she was so empathic. She had such excellent manners. Like, she was just grace, all right? She just moved and spoke in just pure grace. It was just such a bracha. It was such a blessing to have this opportunity to sit next to her. She was just lovely, just absolutely lovely. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to have a woman who could speak German and you could have her read to you in the original German. Like, she could speak to you in perfect German diction, like the most exciting insights from Carl Schmitt. So I could tell her, sovereign is he who decides the state of exception. So I was explaining that to her, and I was thinking, wow, wouldn't that be wonderful if she could like repeat that back to me in German? I didn't ask her to do that, right, on this plane flight. I thought I'd take it out slow, and then I talked to her about the concept of the political. The concept of the political is the friend-enemy distinction, when the enemy rises into view, and the enemy is he who has the ability to annihilate you. Right, I would love to hear these Carl Schmitt aphorisms like said back to me in the beautiful original German. I mean, is that bad? I mean, I'm not the type of bloke who likes to go around fetishizing women and imagining them speaking Carl Schmitt aphorisms to me in perfect German. But I explained to her about the concept of the political. I explained to her about the state of exception, and then I said, well, of course, Carl Schmitt also had entered into an erotic state of exception where he felt released from the moral strictures of Roman Catholicism and bourgeois morality, and she was like interested in the erotic state of exception. When you take a moral holiday, so let's say you go to a different place where not many people know you, and when you take this holiday, you let go all, your traditional moral strictures. All right. And, you let go all of your restraints, particularly in the sexual arena, and, you just go for the gusto without, traditional concerns about God and holiness and maintaining your good name in your religious community. All right. That's a moral holiday, which is an erotic state of exception. So wouldn't it be great? I mean, to have a German-speaking girlfriend who could just read Carl Schmitt to you, like in perfect Hebrew. Maybe there's something weird about me, right? Maybe there's something off here, that this is what I just find incredibly exciting. but I'm only human and I've got no filter, right? This is coming to you. This is unfiltered, uncensored. This is raw dogging this live stream because I've had no sleep, could not sleep on the plane. And so I'm just letting it rip. No thoughts of repercussions. Here we go. And Coulter speaking with Mickey Kaus.
Fellow, which meant that it was sort of trendy gibberish subsidized by the MacArthur Foundation. And it said that being blonde is sort of a euphemism for being white. Yeah, it probably is. And that they enjoy a special status. Yeah, because men seem to like blondes more. And what you didn't say is black men probably like blondes more too. So it was like an article just when you thought it was going to get to a point, it descended into gibberish about sex status and gender, and we're going to continue this conversation. No, have it now. You have an op-ed in the New York Times. Say what you want to say. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, the reason I liked it is Steve Saylor he started writing about this, I guess, around the time of George Floyd. He calls it World War Hair. And he had read about, 100 op-eds and editorials written by all of these black ladies who had been, heavily promoted at newspapers and into journalism as part of the racial reckoning. And his point was, you would think if black women have been kept down and prevented from sharing their ideas and their thoughts in op-ed pieces and in newspapers and in important academic journals and on college campuses for 400 years, what great ideas have they come up with? And what he noticed is they really want to talk about their hair. And wow, he has a lot of examples of this. The allegation of the microaggression, which is about the only thing black people can come up with these days to prove vicious white supremacy in our country, because people are really, really, really nice to black people, and liberals won't brook any criticism of a black person. That tends not to lead to good behavior, by the way. And I haven't even raised kids, but never ever being allowed to criticize someone just because of the color of their skin, not a good idea, in my opinion. And he's found so what can they come up with to prove that they're being discriminated against? And it's all of these apocryphal stories about white people asking to touch their hair. I've been around black people, went to high school, was friends with, you've met her, in LA, black gal, and that's back to high school and college. I've never heard of, I have never seen, I do not believe white people are constantly asking to touch black people's hair. This is just, got to come up with something.
But they want to do it, Ann. They just don't ask it. I mean, I have the impulse to, it would be a nice texture, and I have that impulse. Well, I also think there is sort of latent racism, and one struggles against it. You shouldn't deny that it's there, but it shouldn't be the dominant topic of daily life. I mean, there's latent anti-Semitism too. There's all sorts of latent biases.
Right, my latent bias. I only have one true prejudice. I probably shouldn't say. I'm sure some of look, I can overcome my prejudice. The prejudice is just a prejudgment. It's against short people. And as you know, some of my best friends are short. I can overcome my prejudice in any event. We got a little far afield. But yeah, I mean, I look at the OJ jury to see what black ladies think of blondes. They cut off a blonde's head, no big deal. Let's give them an award. I mean, there's just so much more going on in here. But to have the newspaper of record furthering this nonsense and hatred of black ladies toward some black ladies, obviously not all, that is a prejudice that actually interferes with our lives, as opposed to the latent racism you're talking about. No, ask your blonde female friends how they get treated by not all by a long shot. Some are lovely Christian ladies, and I love them. But yeah, that is a genuine hatred, and to just allow one of their op-ed writers to vent her spleen on the op-ed page of the New York Times.
Don't you think it's better to get it out? It's better to get it out in the open where you could deal with it and ridicule it. My problem with it is it didn't quite make its point. It was like 5,000 words long and didn't ever say I hate blondes or something, or blondes are.
That's a great point by Mickey Kaus. Yeah, it's probably best to get many of these, hatreds just out in the open. Right. So some hatreds, right, are needless, destructive, gratuitous. All right. And you should, perhaps, start letting them go, or minimize how much you express them in public. But yeah, a lot of hatreds, it's probably best to publicize them, let them go a little bit. So Mickey Kaus frequently comes up with points that I didn't consider. All right, before I get to the Mother Jones, Nick Fuentes story, so much great stuff in the LA Times. So we landed in Los Angeles about 30 minutes early, and apparently customs doesn't open up until 6 a.m. So I was sitting on the plane scrolling through Apple News Plus, and just all these amazing stories that I'd love to discuss with you, but I need your feedback to hear if you want to talk about them, because this is a you-directed stream. This isn't about me. This is about you and your needs and what you want. I'm turning over a new leaf. I'm becoming other-directed. I am here to serve you. All right, Los Angeles Times. These artists are preserving the history of a dance style gay men created in 70s era Los Angeles. Wow, that sounds fascinating. Then we can talk about that. Or don't block your blessings, cis straight men. Embrace the beauty of skirts. Powerful, powerful story. Or commentary. It's not just the Oscars that fail black women. It's the entire awards ecosystem. Stunning and brave. Los Angeles Times. Asian seniors should keep dancing, and other advice on how to rebuild after a tragedy. So Asian Americans, less than any other group, are vulnerable overall to violent crime, right? Less violent crime happens to Asian Americans than happens to white Americans, black Americans, or Latino Americans. So this notion that there's some kind of, massive tsunami of hatred against Asians, rolling through America, it seems absolutely ludicrous. And among the absolute safest places that you can go, all right, are, Asian dance parlors. So this idea that, Asians going dancing are particularly under threat because we had, 3 older Asian men go on massive shootabouts. Well, this is incredibly rare in American life. Okay, one more story here from the New Yorker. How New York's mayor, Eric Adams, started mentoring a con man. So why do you think Eric Adams started mentoring a con man? A, he wanted to do good. B, he found something about this con man particularly compelling. C, does Eric Adams experience erotic attraction to women or to men or to both? So when men start mentoring men, when men who are bachelors start mentoring men, and I guess, hey, I'm a bachelor and I guess I mentor men, but I don't feel any erotic attraction for them. But methinks maybe I am protesting too much, but I choose to look on the positive side. I think this is fantastic that, Eric Adams is getting out there and mentoring, all these men. I mean, what a giving, loving example, this bloke is setting us. Oh, a brewery's anti-violence mission was complicated by a killing. Like, I never would have expected that. I mean, could you believe that?
U.S. Journal, published in the print issue of The New Yorker with the headline, Trouble Brewing. True colors set out to make money and fight gang violence at the same time. Written by Charles Buffet, narrated by Landon Woodson. Please be advised, this article contains adult language. In April of last year, America's largest beer company, Molson Coors, acquired a minority stake in a Wilmington, North Carolina brewery called True Colors. The brewery, which was started in 2017, had yet to produce any commercially available beer. But it is what people in the corporate world call mission-driven. Its stated aim is to reduce gang violence by employing members of rival gangs. The CEO of Molson Coors, Gavin Hatter's.
So imagine if this was a mission-driven company that wanted to bring people to Jesus. I'd imagine this was a mission-driven company that wanted to support the nuclear family and traditional conceptions of marriage. Okay, I'm skeptical that would meet with much applause. But anyway, pretty shocking story here from the New Yorker.
Suggested that the company's investment was connected to soul searching prompted by the nationwide protests for racial justice in 2020. This partnership represents an opportunity to not only invest in what we believe will be a successful business, but also in a brand with a strong social justice presence that will have an immeasurable positive impact on hundreds of lives, he said. The founder of True Colors is a white entrepreneur named George William Bagby Taylor Jr. His business model is based, at least in part, on views shared by many experts that the rise of black street gangs is related to the disappearance of working-class jobs in American cities.
Yeah, because before there was a disappearance of working-class jobs in American cities, there were just no black street gangs, right? We only have black street gangs because we import too much from China. So in Los Angeles, when they had a strong gang enforcement operation, half of the black men between like 18 and 30 were affiliated with street gangs. Yeah, is it really the lack of manufacturing jobs? I'm skeptical of this claim.
And that the refusal of employers to hire people with criminal records has perpetuated joblessness in heavily policed neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, that nails it. That's the problem with America. We just got way too much policing going on. I mean, it's so sad that these heavily policed urban neighborhoods, all right, it's just doing so much damage. I mean, it's the lack of midnight basketball. That's the problem. This is just such bizarre analysis. I'm struggling here. And normally words can flow from me like a mighty river. But I got to rewind this. This is bizarre.
Positive impact on hundreds of lives, he said. The founder of True Colors is a white entrepreneur named George William Bagby Taylor Jr. His business model is based, at least in part, on views shared by many experts that the rise of black street gangs is related to the disappearance of working class.
So I'm pretty shocked to find out that criminologists tend to be somewhere between 95 and 99% on the left. All right, they don't want to blame criminals, all right, and they don't want to blame communities that have enormous rates of crime, right? They somehow, they're very woke, and they believe that woke means that there are certain groups that should be held immune from public criticism, such as Jews, blacks, gays, the transgendered, and the like.
Jobs in American cities, and that the refusal of employers to hire people with criminal records has perpetuated joblessness in heavily policed neighborhoods.
Whoa. So it's the refusal of employers to hire people with criminal records that has perpetuated joblessness in heavily policed neighborhoods. So first of all, these neighborhoods aren't heavily policed given the very low rate with which they solve murders and the astronomical amounts of crime that go on there, and how dramatically crime comes down when you have policies like stop and frisk. So first of all, these neighborhoods, generally speaking, aren't heavily policed. Now, the reason that you have chronic joblessness in these heavily policed neighborhoods is not because employers are just, too stupid to, not overlook someone with a criminal record. It's that the very values and reactions to stimuli, all right, phrase things just in a completely neutral way, all right, people who evolve certain reactions to stimuli that lead to criminal convictions tend to have a whole string of pathologies that do not make for success in life or success in work. So the criminal convictions are simply a symptom of these pathological reactions to stimuli.
Companies elsewhere have put former gang members to work packaging tuna and making vintage-inspired collegiate wear, most notably Homeboy Industries, which was founded by a Jesuit priest named Greg Boyle in Los Angeles, has employed hundreds of former gang members at a bakery, a grocery, and other businesses. Boyle began by creating a job training program, and 4 years passed before his organization launched its first retail venture. Homeboy Industries remains a nonprofit and requires that anyone seeking employment leave gang life behind.
Whoa, that's way too restrictive. Can you imagine that? I mean, this his father Boyle, Greg Boyle, and this Christian Homeboys Industries, that they only want to employ these troubled young men after they have walked away from active participation in crime gangs, right? Wow, that's just so harsh, so punitive. Really, do we have to hate like this?
Taylor took a different approach. He recruited purported gang leaders in Wilmington and said that he wanted them to remain active in their gangs in order to maintain their influence. True Colors is a private, for-profit enterprise. Our first goal is to sell beer, Taylor told a reporter in 2018. He has said that he aims to sell the company as he has sold other startups. 3 months after Molson's investment, on an early morning in July, Taylor got a phone call. There had been a shooting at his son's house. George William Bag.
Whoa, who would thought that employing people from rival gangs, right, people who are still actively participating in gangs, people with criminal records actively participating in rival gangs, whoever could have imagined that this would lead to criminal violence? I'm shocked.
Taylor III, who was in his early 30s, was the COO of True Colors. He lives in a large, white-columned home in a gated community called Providence. When his father got to the house that morning, Taylor III was in his underwear, in handcuffs, in the back of a squad car. The police had discovered him barricaded in a bathroom with a pair of guns, one of which, according to a search warrant, he'd found in a bedroom where multiple gang members had been living. 2 people were dead. Cordreese Tyson, who was 29, and Breonna Williams, who was 21. Both were black. Tyson was employed by True Colors and was a member of the Gangster Disciples.
Whoa, I'm pretty shocked. Just imagine that both victims were black. This is just blowing me away.
The sheriff's office quickly came to believe that the murders were gang-related and that Taylor III was not directly involved. The sheriff declined to comment on an ongoing investigation. Still, Williams's family was concerned that the Taylors bore some responsibility for her death. You take a lot of young kids from different areas of town, different gangs, different sets, knowing they don't like each other, and put them in one building, and you're paying them, and you want them to stay in the gang while working. Her brother Malquan Dixon said, incredulous, in an interview with local TV news.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you. It's obvious to me that white people are responsible for black gang members shooting each other. It's these do-gooder white people, man. They're the problem here.
You can't live 2 lives like that. One has to go. Williams's mother, Adrienne Dixon, addressed the elder Taylor directly. You're doing nothing but harming my community. Somewhere that you don't live, she said. Dixon was also upset that Taylor hadn't called her or Williams's father before issuing a public statement the day after the murders. In the statement, he described Williams, whom he admitted he did not know, as a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. He described Tyson as a friend and as one of the incredible and selfless people at True whose work had undoubtedly saved countless lives. He noted that Tyson was not the first person connected with True to have been killed and acknowledged that he had not commented publicly about the previous.
Yeah, bro, they were just enacting whiteness. It's times like this that we need those 6 million points of light to start, coming into full bloom. All right, let's play a little bit more here. And Coulter talking with Mickey Carlson.
Jerks, or they're it danced around that. But you can then do. There was a lot of resentment among black women for the sort of white women that black men like to go out with.
I also object to that.
That's been heavily documented.
Right, it's heavily documented, and I object to that. And I would say to my vast audience of black lady viewers here, I feel the same way about that. I have, in my lifetime, I've been single for 120 years. In my lifetime, I've dated boys who had girlfriends, that I didn't know about. Never a married man, as far as I know. No, never a married man. But, I find out into the relationship often because the girlfriend finds out about me. And the girlfriend, okay, who are you going to be mad at? I didn't know you existed. Your dumbass boyfriend cheated on you. He knows you existed. How about being mad at the guy? It's a very weird impulse, but no, I'm going to hold the boy. He didn't do it. It must have been this vixen. And it's not the exact same thing, but in my case, the ones I'm thinking of, pretty much everyone involved was white, so it wasn't a black-white thing. But it's the same thing with black women being angry at blondes. How about don't get mad at the blonde, get mad at the black man going for the blonde?
Yeah, I agree. But there's only one way I know to fight the prejudice against unattractive people. And the natural tendency of people, especially people who are single, to rate people according to their looks and pay more attention to the attractive ones than the unattractive ones, and that is to run for office. When you run for office, everybody's a vote. You treat everybody the same.
Oh.
You treat a fat person the same as a thin person. 3 fat people 3 times as well as a thin person. It's a total democratizing attitude you have to have, and it's a wonderful thing as long as it lasts. If you only get 5%, as I did, it doesn't last very long. But
well, also, if
anyway.
you're a salesman, and really we're all salesmen in one way or another, the same thing is true at a book signing or at a speech, or I suppose if you're running a store, a customer is a customer.
I guess that's right.
And yes, people do come over their prejudices. Though you did just remind me, this is an argument we used to spring on our very racially sensitive fellow law students, the white ones who are the most racially sensitive, that really the worst thing, the most discrimination of all isn't my little idiosyncratic prejudice against short people. And again, many of my best friends are short people. It's really ugly people. That would be horrible. That would be really awful, because people do have, there's not much you can do about it. I suppose if you're overweight, you can lose weight, but it's a prejudice that no one ever talks about, I suppose, because the victims of it don't want to come forward and say, hey, I'm ugly, and people are really mean to me and discriminate against me, and I didn't get that job because I'm.
And the chat says, don't get mad at the coal burner. Get mad at the coal? No. How are you guys handling these, thick loads of wisdom that are just washing all over you? Are we just enacting whiteness in these streams? Is this what we have devolved to? That we're just people who think we're white, enacting whiteness and perpetrating, say, microaggressions? I would hope that there's something more than that going on in these live streams. All right. It came from the basement. How Nick Fuentes groomed a new generation of racist hate. So as someone who has had several dozen news articles about him and as a blogger, and there's just this superior attitude by the news media to people who blog or people who live stream, they live in their parents' basement. All right, cheap put down. So I remember when the Jewish Journal of Los Angeles put me on their cover, right? It's like interview with a serial blogger, right? Serial killer, a serial blogger, lives in the parents' basement. All right, it's this irresistible urge to put people down, and obviously that's not just something with the news media. I think that's just something very human, right? We all, get a thrill from putting people down. Let me get my act together.
But House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has made clear cuts to those programs are not on the table.
None of that is true. And that's the bad part here, that the first administration said they won't negotiate, and then they want to play politics. Why are they so afraid to sit down to find where you can eliminate waste?
President Biden has signed $5.8 trillion worth of new spending into law since he took office. House Republicans now say it's up to them to rein that in. In his speech today, though, President Biden is expected to say that trillions of dollars in spending has actually helped the economy. John?
Helped inflation as well. Helped jack it up. There's no question about that.
That's
Grady
what
Trimble
the economists say. Yeah.
That's what. Yeah, but who are they to know? They're just economists. Grady Trimble for us. Grady, thank you. Sandra?
All right. Well, the GOP gets ready to roll out several investigations.
Okay, let's move back to this Mother Jones essay on Nick Fuentes. How Nick Fuentes groomed a new generation of racist hate. And this is another big misconception that I see dominant in the news media and in academia and among the social elite, that it is people like Rush Limbaugh and Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes and Richard Spencer. They create all this racist hate when really they articulate it, right? Donald Trump didn't create, bigotry and racism, right? If you see bigotry and racism as serious problems in America, well, Donald Trump didn't create them, and he didn't, massively expand these forms of hatred, right? People like Nick Fuentes, Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, they articulate things that many people feel, right? There would be approximately the same amount of quote unquote racist hatred in this country if Donald Trump never came along, if Nick Fuentes never came along, if Tucker Carlson never came along, if Richard Spencer, Nick Fuentes, Rush Limbaugh, all right? It's that there's all these subterranean emotions which are supposed to be beyond us, all right? So remember, the liberal conception of the self is that we should be reflexive, that we should take into account the effect of everything we say and do on other people, all right, as opposed to the traditional conception of the self, which is, a man has a right to be king in his own castle, master of his own domain, and he should be able to, sit at home, say what he thinks without taking into consideration, how every single individual or group might have, negative feelings about what's being said. But the left-wing liberal conception of morality is that we've always got to take into consideration every single, individual and group in what we say, and that the greatest threats to society are ignorance and bigotry. And so the left and the liberals are always on this, ceaseless crusade to combat ignorance and bigotry. How Nick Fuentes groomed a new generation of racist hate. No, Nick Fuentes provided an entertaining expression of quote-unquote racist hatred for people who aren't terribly smart. So the average IQ of Nick Fuentes' audience is probably something like 100. So 8 months before the white nationalist figure Nicholas J. Fuentes. Now, if Nick Fuentes is a white nationalist, he's unlike pretty much any white nationalist we've seen before. I don't think that white nationalist is the most accurate description for him, right? This is not someone who is consumed with hatred. Right? This is not someone who is, just constantly denigrating non-white groups. This is not someone who's constantly saying how, whites are superior to all other groups. Yeah, he says that on occasion, but this isn't what drives him. Okay, so Fuentes ignited a political firestorm by dining with Kanye West and Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. So did he ignite a political firestorm? I guess he ignited a political firestorm for those people for whom, politics is number one in their life. So live streaming must be number one in my life. All right, I'm severely sleep deprived. I haven't had a shower. I haven't, cleaned up, put all my stuff away. And here I am, live streaming because I've got these, powerful pulsating insights that I've just got to share with you. But the only people who are ignited in this political firestorm are people who put politics pretty close to number one in their life. I think everyone else just went on with their life. Okay, so 8 months before Nicholas Fuentes ignited this political firestorm, and I don't think that what he did dining with Kanye West and Donald Trump is worthy of a political firestorm. I think it's compelling anecdote. It reveals things about Donald Trump, that he doesn't have an effective team, vetting who he meets with, that Donald Trump doesn't like to criticize people who praise him, that Donald Trump, so loves being praised that he will take it from almost anyone. And I've experienced that too. I love being praised. I have a thirst for being admired. And that thirst can get out of control and start wreaking havoc in my life. So when I am centered, all right, when I'm in a good place, then I'm much less likely to feel some gratification when the dregs of society praise me, right? But if I'm feeling particularly empty, right? If I feel like my life's not working, my world's collapsing in around me, that people don't appreciate me, then yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that praise from the dregs of society. Look, have you heard the latest about TRS? Some high weirdness around their partner publisher Antelope Hill being connected to Israel. No, I have I have not heard that. Oh, so entertaining. Okay. So 8 months before that dining out, that dinner, so Nick Fuentes strode out on stage to a crowd of what he claimed were 1,000 followers chanting American First. So imagine let's say you do have 1,000 followers of Nick Fuentes chanting American First. What percentage of them would you estimate are doctors? I would estimate 0. What percentage do you estimate belong to a profession? Dentist, professor, accountant, attorney? I would estimate pretty close to 0. What percentage of these people didn't graduate high school? I don't know, 10% perhaps. What percentage of these 1,000 followers earned in 6 figures? So I would bet less than 2%. What percentage of these 1,000 followers would be married with children? I would guess less than 5%. So anyway, behind a podium flanked by 2 American flags and one with that slogan, American First, Nick Fuentes hit his standard beats, "The nation is in decline, Christ is king," while sprinkling in some extremely troubling riffs, like comparing Vladimir Putin to Hitler, suggesting the similarity was a good thing. Okay, so people cease being troubling when you place them in their correct genre, right? So if you understand that Nicholas Fuentes is a provocateur, something of a shock jock, that he has the mentality of many young men who play, Grand Theft Auto, right? This is a Grand Theft Auto devotee who's now, giving political commentary. You'd no longer be troubled, right? This is, if Nick Fuentes says these things, it's very different than if, say, Donald J. Trump says these things, or George Will, all right? If George Will started talking like Nick Fuentes, then yeah, there's reason to be troubled. But the Grand Theft Auto ethos, all right, and I think Nick Fuentes embodies far more of the Grand Theft Auto ethos than the Roman Catholic or Christian ethos. There's virtually nothing that feels Christian to me about Nick Fuentes aside from a rhetorical device. Right? I just don't see any evidence that this is someone who takes Christianity seriously. I do see an evidence that this is someone who takes gaming seriously. So Nick Fuentes is a gamer. He's the type of bloke who, plays Grand Theft Auto, and then he comments on politics. So once you place him in his correct genre, right? This is a gamer, right? This is, Grand Theft Auto kind of guy. Then you're not going to find this troubling, right? This is just, blokes who are not married, don't have prestigious positions in society, blowing off some steam. This Marriott Conference Center worth of groypers, which Nick Fuentes fans call themselves in homage to a right-wing internet frog meme, had gathered in Orlando for the 3rd annual America First Political Action Conference. He was serving as the warm-up act for a secret guest of honor, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. She didn't say anything too noteworthy, but her willingness to appear at an event hosted by an openly racist Holocaust denier was a massive victory for his cause. All right, I'm not a world's expert on Nick Fuentes, but quote-unquote Holocaust denial would probably occupy 0.01 of what Nick Fuentes talks about. So it's unfair, I think, to tag him with Holocaust denier and white nationalist, even though he has said things that are in line with that. And so I'm not going to lose sleep that he gets tagged with these things. But he's a gamer, right? He's a bloke who talks primarily to blokes, and blokes like to say shocking, funny things, particularly while they're gaming. So no need to get all troubled. So yeah, openly racist Holocaust denier. It was a massive victory for his cause. Really, was it a massive victory for Nick Fuentes' cause? Because Marjorie Taylor Greene said afterwards she didn't know anything about him. How exactly was this a massive victory for Nick Fuentes' cause? Do you think that his following, would be substantially decreased if she'd never appeared at this conference? Yeah, it's just locker room talk, bros. Just locker room talk. Do you think that, his bank account, his, opportunities in life, his prominence would be significantly reduced if Marjorie Taylor Greene or Paul Gosar had never appeared at his conferences? They were trying to use Nick, right? Nick wasn't using them, right? They were trying to appeal to Nick's audience. His success, to the extent he has success, you consider Nick Fuentes successful, has nothing to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene or Paul Gosar, sitting members of Congress, speaking at his events. Becoming a member of Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene had helped bring institutional credibility to fringe and racist conspiracy theories. Really? Did she really bring institutional credibility? Did hearing that the Rothschilds might have fired off space lasers to cause forest fires in California, did that really bring just a ton of credibility, institutional credibility to that perspective? Right? People did not evolve to be gullible. People were not born yesterday. They're not stupid. Just because a sitting member of Congress or a president of the United States says something ludicrous, right, it doesn't change hearts and minds. Right? People only change their hearts and their minds when it's in their interest to do so, when it already fits in with how they view the world. So this Mother Jones article subscribes to the zombie bite theory of information, that if people just get exposed to Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeting that California forest fires were caused by Rothschilds firing space lasers, that they're just going to get zapped by reading that and turn into helpless zombies. It's completely ludicrous understanding of human nature, which does fit with the left, who have an equally ludicrous understanding of human nature, that people are born basically good and that it's society that warps them. From a traditionalist perspective, people are born basically selfish and society helps morally educate people. So when I was going through year after year of chronic fatigue syndrome, particularly severe in my 20s, so I was basically bedridden 18, 20 hours a day, almost everyone I met and spoke to in the second half of life was compassionate. And very few people that I spoke to who are my age or younger were. So by the time we hit our 20s, it's very rare that we deliberately do things to shame people to their face, right? There are all sorts of harsh edges to our personalities that are effectively smoothed off by the time we hit our 20s. And people in their 40s tend to be much kinder and more compassionate, more agreeable, more conscientious, less neurotic than people younger than that. So that's some of the basis for the traditional conception that, we're born basically selfish and society usually morally educates us. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene was doing the same for his brand of white nationalism. Yeah, I think that's accurate. Just as much as Marjorie Taylor Greene brought institutional credibility to fringe and racist conspiracy theories, in my view, none. Now she's doing the same for his brand of white nationalism. None. It was a big deal for her to come out and do that, Fuentes said, praising Greene after a keynote. You guys know full well the risk. She put herself out on a limb tonight. We here at AFPAC, American First Political Action Committee, are grateful. At AFPAC, our family said it would be a small group of highly motivated people who would change the world. He added, here in Orlando, I say, we are that group of people. We are going to rule this country. I suspect that it is unlikely that members of AFPAC, Nick Fuentes' Political Action Committee, are going to rule this country. So count me skeptical. And here's Ann Coulter talking to Mickey Kaus.
Ugly, but I think that is the worst prejudgment that the nation or any nation has.
No, it's certainly hard to overcome. But anyway, I think we've canceled ourselves, so we'll never be on the Supreme Court.
Okay, well that's good, because I can bring up the next topic, which I've already talked about on a podcast that you weren't on. We had small disagreement, you and me, in our last podcast. I agreed with you in theory. Turns out I was wrong on what the Florida Woke Act.
And we are currently going out live over Rumble. We are live over Odyssey and Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we've got a comment here in the Rumble chat. A lot of Nick supporters are just done with the immoral idiocracy of the current establishment. They were raised in a debased corporate filth society, and they want something better. Yeah. So I don't think that most of Nick's followers are primarily animated by hatred of non-whites. I don't think most of Nick's followers are primarily animated by denying the Holocaust. I don't think they're primarily animated by, hatred of Jews. I think they're primarily animated by the sense that almost all of America's institutions are governed by the left, and that we're steadily becoming a less moral, more degenerate, less godly society. And to simply stay in place as a Christian, to the extent that Christianity was influential in the 1950s, now you have to take much more extreme measures. You have to become a quote-unquote Christian nationalist, right, to simply hold by the same moral standards that Christians were employing in the 1950s. So I've been swimming a lot in the ocean over the past few months in Australia, and when you get caught in a riptide, right, you have to swim a lot harder to get back to shore. So if you're fighting a 2-mile-an-hour riptide, right, and your normal swimming speed is 2 miles an hour, then you have to swim twice as fast to make substantial progress against the tide. American Christians and American religious Jews and religious people of all kinds in the United States having to fight against an increasingly secular tide, and so it requires much greater degree of devotion. Right? Becoming a Roman Catholic priest is a much more natural thing if you're living in parts of Italy and Poland. But if you become a Roman Catholic priest in the United States, right, that requires a whole new level of commitment. You have to put a lot more into it. It doesn't just flow with the tide as it would in parts of Italy and Poland. So too, in an increasingly non-Christian and anti-Christian America, right, just maintaining some semblance of traditional morality, some semblance of devotion to God, to biblical principles and ideals and practices, right, requires much more extreme devotion. And let's see what's going on here with Fox News.
React to the delivery of Western battle tanks. This has largely been seen as a massive leap on the escalation ladder in this war. Sandra.
Trey Yingst on the ground in Kyiv for us. Thank you very much, Trey. John?
Sandra, let's bring in Wyoming Senator John Barrasso. He's on the Foreign Relations Committee in the Senate. So we're sending...
Yeah, let's not bring him in. Okay, back to this Mother Jones essay on Nick Fuentes. The event's evolution, meaning the America First Political Action Committee, suggests he's made progress towards this goal that we're going to rule this country. Do you really think that Nick Fuentes has made substantial progress towards that goal? I think that's delusional. First one in February 2020 had no politicians, instead featuring far-right commentator Michelle Malkin and Patrick Casey. By 2022, 6 Republican elected officials spoke, including Green and Representative Paul Gosar. They appeared alongside explicit white power activists, including Vincent James, Peter Brimlow, founder of VDARE, and Jared Taylor, founder of American Renaissance. The logistics of the Orlando conference were also designed to accelerate the GOP's slide toward white nationalism. Really? You really think that the Republican Party is just sliding towards white nationalism? I just don't see it. I think that's completely absurd. It was just a 15-minute drive from where the Conservative Political Action Conference, which for decades has drawn the party's biggest names and thousands of attendees, was taking place the same day. Okay, so proximity does not mean that these two forces have a great deal in common. Right, just because Nick Fuentes' conference is 15 minutes from CPAC doesn't mean that they have, a whole lot of stuff in common. I find that particularly powerful. So AFPAC started at 9 p.m. after CPAC wrapped, so participants could attend both. So how many of the participants at AFPAC you think went to CPAC? I would venture fewer than 10%, most likely fewer than 5%. So I'm not buying a lot of these premises in this Mother Jones article. Now, Mother Jones does do, careful. Let me rephrase. They do some interesting journalism, and this essay is interesting. I mean, it's definitely has a strong left-wing slant, but it's still worth reading if you're interested in this topic. In the latter half of the 20th century, the GOP was pushed right by radio provocateurs like Rush Limbaugh, Nick Fuentes' hero, Pat Buchanan. Was the GOP pushed right by talk radio, or did the GOP and talk radio simply reflect the base? Right, you get a following to the degree that you meet people's needs. Right, Rush Limbaugh was not shifting people to the right, and I don't think that the GOP has shifted substantially to the right. People who never held elected office but were deeply influential to a radicalizing party and a portent of its Trumpified future. Well, Pat Buchanan has served in political office working for Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon. And is the Republican Party radicalizing? I mean, sure, if at the same time you're willing to say, yeah, the Democratic Party is also radicalizing. Today, this 24-year-old digital native is doing the same. My job, Fuentes explained in a May 2021 live stream, is to keep pushing things further. Right? Fuentes or 40 or any commentator, right, any pundit, any activist can only push people in a direction where they already want to go. If they don't want to go there, you're not going to have any success pushing them. Go out there into the world and try to push people further and see how that works out, right? In my experience, that doesn't really tend to work out very well. Right? You can never effectively push anyone anywhere they don't already want to go. I'm just concerned about this misinformation and conspiracy mongering on the left. There's just a tsunami. I don't know about you. I feel like I'm just getting face blasted by all this left wing, conspiracy mongering and misinformation, and I'm tired of it. We need to do something about it. It makes me uncomfortable to be face blasted by all this misinformation. So Fuentes says, my job is to keep pushing things further. Right. He's never going to push anyone further than they already want to go. My father was a Christian evangelist, right? The only people that he would, bring to Christ were those who were already, predisposed to that message, who wanted some assurance of their heavenly salvation. So if Nick Fuentes believes that he's pushing things further, he's delusional. We, because nobody else will, need to push the envelope. Yeah, nobody else is pushing the envelope. Only Nick Fuentes and the gropers. We're going to get called racist, sexist, anti-Semitic, bigoted. Yeah, because nobody else is called racist, sexist, anti-Semitic, and bigoted. It's only gropers. When the party is where we are 2 years later, we're not going to get the credit for the ideas that became popular. Yeah, I'm sure it's the groypers who are leading the Republican Party's evolution. But that's okay. We are the right-wing flank of the Republican Party. This is delusional, right? Virtually no elected Republican officials will stand with Nick Fuentes. One of Fuentes' talents is pivoting from any topic to his central beliefs. Well, yeah, any live streamer, right? To be a successful live streamer, you have to just be pumping out whatever's coming into your mind, right? You just have to be this stream of consciousness, because if you strongly, carefully consider everything that you're saying, then you get streamus interruptus. You'll get a squirt of punditry here, followed by a long awkward pause, followed by dribble drabble drip drip of thoughts, and then you'll get face blasted by 10 randos commentary that, has nothing to do with the purported topic of the live stream. It's not a pretty sight, mate. It's not just about the pandemic, Nick exhorted. Take a look at this city for the past year. Ever since George Floyd died, just like every city in America, the crime is out of control. Well, crime is out of control, right? Not just in New York City, not just in Los Angeles. We've had a massive growth in murder and traffic deaths and pedestrian deaths since the arrival of Black Lives Matter on the scene in 2014. Anger over public health measures provided a way to launder more extreme and racist positions. But did it really? Right? Let's say someone is anti-lockdown, someone's anti-vax, and are they therefore more likely then to become, racist and anti-Semitic? I don't think, people who are anti-lockdown, anti-vax, and they hear Nick Fuentes saying the same thing, that they then, wash away his more repulsive comments. It's like, oh, well, at least this guy's, anti-vax and anti-lockdown, therefore I'm, A-okay with, these jokes he makes about the Holocaust. And Mother Jones says that Nick is tapping into his audience's fears of being left behind. Well, yeah, that is how you become a successful speaker, whether it's on a live stream or in person or on the radio. You have to move people, right? People want to feel something, right? People want to get energized. People want to get angry. People want to have their feelings and thoughts distilled and articulated in a more pleasing and profound manner than they're able to do for themselves. So anyone who has any success with public speaking, right, it's because they can emotionally move people. They can convey emotion. So one definition of charisma is that you do something that seems very difficult, verging on the impossible, that gets attention. You then get more followers, resources, money, which enables you to do more things which look very difficult or impossible. And that spiral continues as long as you can pull it off, but eventually, everyone fails. So there are limits to charisma. Another theory of charisma is that charisma is someone who consistently provides you with additional energy. So you tune into a live stream, and that live streamer is filled with energy and passion and enthusiasm and emotion, and you feel energized and passionate and more excited about life just by, tapping into that live stream, right? That is charismatic. Just like a person at work who goes around, says good morning, connects with people, how was your weekend, right? And you feel energized after consistently connecting with someone. You feel better. You feel more energized. That person's charismatic. Some people have a gift of making people around them feel better, feel good, feel energized. That type of person is charismatic. So there are two definitions of charisma, which I think are pretty good. Right, here's Ann Coulter talking with Mickey Kaus.
Said, which you emailed me about. So I promptly changed my position. Do you want to describe the parameters of what we agreed on and what the dispute was?
The question was, did this DeSantis anti-walk law, all the attention has been going to its effect on universities and schools, but it also applies to businesses, and it makes, if you have diversity training that makes somebody feel shamed because of their race, that is a grounds for a civil suit, the same way, I guess, creating a toxic workplace sexually is grounds for a civil suit. And it's just been added to the list of complaints employees can make that hold their employer accountable and subject to, I guess, damages or something. If they employ woke diversity training that says white people should be ashamed and can never repay the debt, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what it says. It does apply to private businesses.
That's what our dispute
was.
was.
Yeah,
I thought it did not. And I said, yes, you're right. I think it shouldn't apply to private businesses. This is just businesses doing contracting with the states or schools, universities, so on and so forth. And after the podcast, you emailed me and said, no, it applies to private businesses. Whereupon I promptly changed my position. And I think it should apply to private businesses. Would you like to hear my argument?
Yes.
This is a very libertarian instinct of yours, which is what I was initially going with. Because, yeah, in a perfect world, I'd agree with you. I don't think there should be any employment discrimination rules. Well, except against black people. I would keep that one. You can't discriminate against black people, and that is it. But the way things stand now, it's liberals just piling on one thing after another, and then the trial lawyers rushing in and making it basically impossible to not hire, to not promote, to fire anyone except a straight American-born, fully abled white male. And so you get this ratchet effect where the only people who aren't protected are the ones, who vote Republican, because Republicans say, oh no, private business should be able to do whatever it wants. And you have absolutely crazy employment lawsuits and employers and people at law firms and HR departments walking on eggshells. And, oh my gosh, you didn't ask someone if she was pregnant, did you? You didn't ask about marital status. An airline was forced to hire, an actual case, 55-year-old pilots, even though the mandatory retirement age is age 60, for fear of age discrimination. Saying to someone at work, okay, boomer, that could be an example of age discrimination. I mean, it is completely out of control. And for one thing, to protect the sort of people who ever vote Republican, like I say, it's just a ratchet effect, hurting your voters, but helping everybody else. But also because liberals never understand the perniciousness of their stupid laws and stupid policies until it finally gets applied to them and against them.
I have
Yeah, that's some pretty good commentary there from Ann Coulter.
Remember this. That's the guy who's now quoted in the Sundance documentary, the one who was calling her, pestering her. Don't you remember? Don't you remember?
Really?
It's just another tendentious description.
Everybody who accuses Obama, it's like, oh, he's the only guy we could go to. That sort of lends it sort of detracts.
Okay, here they're talking about the new documentary on Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh.
Get Kavanaugh. He'll do it. Nope.
Yeah, get Kavanaugh. He'll do it.
Again, made a documentary where he claims there was one other cold call to the FBI, a guy who said he had heard about the Ramirez incident. Well, that's nothing. That's like more secondhand rumors. But that he had witnessed Kavanaugh also expose himself to another co-ed at another drunken party. What I want to know is, why is Kavanaugh the only guy who exposes himself? Is he the designated penis for Yale? It's like, oh, we're gonna have fun at this party. Somebody's gonna expose himself. Get Kavanaugh. He'll do it. Nobody else will do it. We're surrounded by macho rugby players. They won't do it, but they'll get Kavanaugh and they'll leg him on. It's like the stories when a guy comes to Chicago and says, and they say, well, we'll introduce you to the top drug dealer, Barack Obama. He controls all the drug trade in Chicago. He's like the only drug dealer in Chicago. Everybody who accuses Obama is like, oh, he's the only guy we could go to. That sort of lends it sort of detracts from the credibility that it's always just, Kavanaugh is doing it, not Kavanaugh and two buddies. It's always Kavanaugh. And that said, there is a scintilla of evidence now that that's some guy claims to have witnessed, and the FBI supposedly didn't follow it up. Thank goodness, because Kavanaugh.
Okay, and Ann and Mickey have noticed a decline in the quality of Twitter. So I can no longer, when I go to Twitter, I think there was an algorithm change about a month or two ago. I no longer automatically get those accounts that I'm following, and I don't get to see them in reverse chronological order, the latest first. Now Twitter is force feeding me all sorts of stuff that I don't want. So I'm not very happy about Elon Musk's direction of Twitter over the past 6 weeks.
A bunch of weirdos took down a moderate third-way Democrat.
Was that the Netflix thing?
Not the one that came out recently. I haven't seen the recent one. I hear it's
the
great.
Joe Carlson movie must have gone straight to video, because I don't even remember it. Sounds pretty relevant. One would want to know before one voted for Clinton, is he willing to tell his wife no? Turns out he wasn't. And that was the stupidest decision of his first term.
Okay, this is another good point by Mickey Kaus that
Good.
Of a bunch of points in his book, but the essential point of Tubin.
Do I get Nick Fuentes? Well, I'm not really his target audience. All right, he's talking to gamers, so Nick is entertaining at kind of a, he's speaking primarily to like a 100 IQ level, so he can be moderately funny and moderately entertaining, but it's not really my thing. So he's a gamer, so I'm not troubled by what he's saying. You have to, fit it into the context of, say, people who play a lot of Grand Theft Auto.
His book was the character issue was just an excuse, and the whole sexual adultery issue is just an excuse to bring up.
Could I see homeless encampments from the plane? No, and I think I seen a reduced number of homeless encampments in Los Angeles over the past 14 months. So that's just my anecdotal impression.
Tawdry details to titillate the public. And then later on in the book, he says how Bill Clinton was reluctant to pull the plug on Hillary's failed healthcare reform because he had such a reputation as a philanderer. He couldn't talk up to her. Well, it sounds pretty relevant. One would want to know before one voted for Clinton, is he willing to tell his wife no? Turns out he wasn't. And that was the stupidest decision of his first term.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Anyway,
I can tell you as a target, in a sense, I don't know if that's the right word, of Michael Isikoff, because I was working behind the scenes on briefs for Paula Jones and her legal argument, and got Linda Tripp, her lawyer, for her, a deadhead friend of mine. So I knew a lot about what was going on and all that, and I did not want to talk to the press. I didn't want anyone, or about what I was doing. I didn't want the other lawyers to tell me anything I shouldn't know before going on TV. I just do my little legal research stuff, and I did Paula Jones' interrogatory. Anyway, when you don't want to talk about something, you don't want to hear Michael Isikoff's voice on your answering machine. You would just be saying, I know you did X, Y, Z. You can call me back, but I'm going with it one way or another. Sort of, and excuse me, Paula Jones, but sort of borderline white trash. No, this is really bad. This is truly undermining the rules.
Side. I mean, your fan side. It has
My main reason for thinking so is 2000. I won't even include 2016. A lot of people on Twitter, really fun, really exciting because Trump was running for office. So I will exclude 2015, 16. But I know what Twitter was like 2017, 2018. I'd even say before Trump came along what Twitter was like. So, 2014 and 13. And I kind of know how many likes I'd get. I kind of know roughly how many retweets I'd get. And it is still down 90%. Now, that isn't proof. It just makes me a teensy bit suspicious. And especially when I see others who are definitely not banned.
Yeah, it's kind of curious how the shadow banning of conservatives, after a brief pause, does not seem to have substantially diminished under Elon Musk.
Or shadow banned by Elon, and I'm sure they've pulled all the algorithms off it. Some boring tweet has like 8 million views, not views, I never look at that, but retweets, likes, which I won't say because it's a friend of Elon's and no use making him more annoying than he is. But what I tweeted out, which, I mean, this is provable. This isn't Ann just saying, go back and look at my Twitter feed from before 2018. And that is, I sent out a tweet. In 2 hours, it had more than 1,000 likes. 1 hour later, it had 299 likes. So it had more than 700 likes taken away in an hour. Now, Mickey, nobody goes back. Oh, remember that tweet I liked an hour ago? I think I'm going to go unlike it. That doesn't happen. And 700 people don't go back and unlike a tweet.
But if you must have noticed since Musk took over and fight all this, Twitter doesn't work as well as it used to. It's minor, but there's screw ups, and that could just be a screw up.
No, I've had it happen before since 2018. No. I promise you this has not happened to a liberal. And to say,
yeah, my experience of Twitter has definitely declined over the past 6 weeks.
oh, this is just a screw up. No, you can't keep saying, oh, oops, we didn't mean to suspend you. That must have been a mistake. This is exactly what went on before Elon, where somebody would be suspended or banned. This happened to James Wood all the time. And, they'd come back 2 weeks later. Oh, I don't know. It was an algorithm. Sorry, an error. How come it only happens to conservatives?
Are you saying that this is holdover San Francisco liberals who are doing this, or is it so built into the algorithm that somehow it happens of its own accord and Musk and his people haven't managed to root it out yet?
Either or both. I mean, I think you're the one who quoted.
So I'm just back from Australia, just a few hours back. I haven't slept in 24 hours, so I'm perhaps more likely to tell the truth. This is more raw, and I also just feeling right now a much greater urge to be inside in Los Angeles. And it's a lovely sunny day. So it's not the weather, it's the quality of the life, it's the quality of the interactions, it's the amount of homelessness, crime, antisocial behavior that's going on in LA compared to Sydney. And it's that, half the people in LA don't even speak English. But I feel much more, my home is my sanctuary. I want to, get home and decompress. In Sydney, I would frequently leave home to decompress, right? Go into public spaces, go to the beach, go on a walkabout, go to the botanical gardens. But in LA, I feel that much stronger urge to stay home and live stream, stay home and read books. In Sydney, I'd be very happy to, go out to the beach and read a book, go to the park and read the book. So I notice, generally speaking, as societies become more diverse, meaning that members of the society have less and less in common with each other, people volunteer less. They pull in like turtles. They spend more time at home. Right, they participate less in public life, right? Because you're not strongly incentivized to participate in public life when you don't have much in common with people around you. So I'm just standing here thinking how glad I was to get home. How glad I was to get away from the messy, awkward, sometimes dirty, generally uncomfortable, sometimes fearful nature of navigating around Los Angeles. Now, navigating around West Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, that is a far more comfortable place for me. That's far more pleasant. There's cleaner streets. There's much less crime. So Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Pacific Palisades, Santa Monica. All right, even if these places are overwhelmingly on the left, I feel very comfortable hanging out there compared to, say, moving east of La Cienega Boulevard or east of Fairfax Boulevard towards downtown Los Angeles. I mean, it took me over an hour to get from LAX to Beverly Hills, and I was just like so glad, just feeling it now in my body. I was just so glad to get inside and, you know, have locked doors and have my own space and, you know, feel safe and comfortable again, as opposed to just kind of the icky, awkward, let's just get this over with. And so when I'm feeling awkward, when I'm feeling uncomfortable, I am not terribly inclined to help other people. So as I was, you know, navigating my way from LAX to Beverly Hills, I wasn't looking to help other people. Well, that came much more naturally in Sydney because I felt comfortable and safe around other people. When I don't feel comfortable and I don't feel terribly safe, when I'm not at ease, you know, with my environment and many of the people around me, you know, I just have much less inclination to help. I mean, I don't want to be that jerk who helps a stranger and is then rewarded for that by getting stabbed or getting shot. So people from Australia are often naive when they come to America and they intervene in all sorts of situations where they shouldn't intervene, but in the, you know, the vastness of the big city. Now, Sydney is also a big city, but in Los Angeles, frequently it's not a good idea to, you know, to help a stranger if it's going to place you in a much more vulnerable position. So I was just doing this live stream and then thinking, I am so glad to be home and to be behind, you know, locked doors right now. And I didn't feel that in Sydney. I didn't feel that in Queensland. Back to Ann Coulter talking to Mickey Cuss.
That guy was named Mark Andreessen.
Right.
Silicon Valley guy. Okay, very bad on immigration, but I'm guessing he knows how a computer works. And I think you quoted him saying there are, you know, 63 different algorithms they could put in to suppress, or as they say, what is it? They de-amplify certain voices. So yes, possible Elon and his guys haven't gone in and found them all. Maybe they're really squirreled away, and probably there are still some wokesters there. I mean, either one or both could still be true, but I know it hasn't been fixed, and it's even worse for them to come out and say, oh, look, we found these 3 conservatives were shadow banned, but we've lifted those shadow bans. So
okay, some good comments from the chat. Fight or flight with 40. Maine has the most comfortable social atmosphere. And John says, this way you need a group of 5'4" groypers to have your back. Well, I'd rather be able to, you know, navigate the world around me without needing an army to back me up. I just want to live in peace, go to the beach, hang out with my friends.
Oh, okay, everything's fixed now when it isn't fixed for 99.99% of conservatives?
Yeah, one of those people was Charlie Kirk, who now claims that he is still shadow banned. He's been one of the people complaining. Even Cat Turd, who was Elon Musk's great buddy for a while, some weird tweeter called Cat Turd. I'm not responsible for his name, but he's turned against Musk. So when you've lost Cat Turd, you're in deep trouble. And my theory is that I'm worried that Musk is going to lose interest. Well, if I couldn't fix this quickly, I'm going to go away, and you know that would be bad. I think.
I kind of hope he does lose interest and let somebody else start running it, because my whole sense of Elon Musk is that he's a good businessman, not a good computer guy. Yeah, that isn't necessarily an insult. He's not one of those autists who are going to get in trouble at work. Same thing could be said of Steve Jobs, you know, but he seems to have more fun trolling people on Twitter and coming out with these, you know, wild statements. Our next topic, AI, the robots will kill us. He loves making these wild statements, but he doesn't really seem to be that into fixing Twitter. I kind of wish he would lose interest in Twitter and let somebody else be the CEO now, even though on Twitter I voted against him stepping down as CEO.
I just come up with a two-plank plan for what Musk could do.
Mm-hmm.
One, move Twitter out of San Francisco, move it to Austin or someplace where there's not where everybody he comes in the door isn't the woke liberal.
Right.
At least only half the people in Austin would be woke liberals, and he could. And the second thing is, I thought he shouldn't buy Substack because Substack actually does enforce free speech. Yeah. He's done a pretty good job of it, and why get them messed up with Twitter? But actually, he should buy Substack and put the Substack people in charge of Twitter, because they've proved.
Yeah. I'd like to see the Substack people running Twitter, because the Substack people have done, you know, only great things to the best of my knowledge. So chat says that I'd like San Jose. Well, I love Stanford. I generally speaking, I love university towns. I love university campuses. They tend to be overwhelmingly safe spaces filled with lots of, you know, really smart people, and, you know, filled with lectures and, you know, book signings and, you know, cultural events, you know, all the things that I'm interested in. So I love Stanford University, that campus, and university campuses in general.
Proven that they can do it, and they presumably know computers. That's the idea.
Oh, well, I like that idea. I want Elon to stay as far away from Substack as possible. I'm terrified that are the last place on the internet where there is free speech. No, keep him away. Stop. But
probably
I guess you're right. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about how these algorithms are put in, but just go in and remove them all. Why should you be amplifying anybody or de-amplifying anybody?
I think the argument is they needed it to make money. In other words, they want to put more stuff in your feed. And if it's just the people you follow, that's not enough. So they want to load it up with people who you don't follow. And then the question is, who do they decide to load it up with? And that's where the algorithm selects them.
Really? I didn't think anybody would show up in my feed if I don't unless they're retweeting someone. Or I have noticed there are a lot more advertisements on Twitter now, which I don't mind at all. I thought they should have done that a long time ago. Fine, stick the promotions in there. Fine, spy on me. Figure out when I'm looking for new curtains and start promoting ads for curtains. Don't.
So when I was watching the Dallas Cowboys versus San Francisco 49ers game a few days ago, I wanted to quickly get, the latest on Twitter analysis of what was happening. And every time I would refresh, Twitter would force feed me For You category with all sorts of tweets that were 3, 6, 19, 24 hours old. And I just wanted the latest and greatest commentary on the bloody football game. So I had to always click over to, those I'm following. So this is an algorithm change in the last 2 months that's definitely reduced the quality of my Twitter experience.
I just want free speech.
Well, it's Mastodon supposedly doesn't have an algorithm. Under my theory, if you eliminate the algorithm, it just costs you money. Okay, if Elon is so rich and so dedicated to free speech, maybe he should say, I don't care about the extra money. I'm going to forego it.
I'm sorry,
and not have an algorithm at all.
I absolutely do not believe that. Twitter was such a blast. It was a blast for liberals, conservatives. If liberals were upset by hearing an opinion that they don't agree with, and apparently that is very upsetting to some liberals, don't follow that person. If that person shows up in your feed, it's only because someone you're following has retweeted that person. Okay, don't unfollow you can mute people, you can unfollow them. But when I follow someone, I want to see their tweets. I want to see who they're retweeting. That's what I want in my Twitter feed. And if you're going to change that, and have some dorks in San Francisco tell me, we really think you should be looking at this, as if I haven't already read it 800 times in the New York Times.
You can get that if you just switch over to the see only my followers on your.
I have to do it every time. A, I have to do it every time I sign on to Twitter. B,
right.
I'm sorry, I do think there's a lot of shadow banning going on. I don't think I'm seeing everybody I'm following. I don't think they're seeing me. I don't think they're seeing enough likes. So what he's doing is just driving people away from Twitter. Good luck making money now. I used to tweet a lot more than I do now. Sometimes I'll come home from dinner, be bored, and read the New York Times and start tweeting insults at them. But really, I don't tweet half as much as I used to because I just feel like it's going into a black hole. So the producers at some cable news station can go through and give it to their boss and steal it from me. Why should I be the unpaid intern for a cable news?
On the liberal side, if they're showing liberals' intensity tweets too, I could see where that could be annoying to them. The liberals seems that they had a good deal with Twitter, and they don't like the good deal being taken away. So I don't exactly know what their objection is. Their objection is that they used to tweet and have a chorus of hosannas how great your tweet was, and we're retweeting it and we're amplifying it, and everybody is now hating Judge Kavanaugh. Or is the argument that now people are now arguing with them, or they're just they're not having the reach they used to have?
I think I think they do have the reach they used to have, and I could be completely wrong about this. I think it's just, well, you're a liberal, you may object to this. I think it is just deep in the liberal psyche. They can't stand that conservatives are laughing and having fun. They don't even have to look at those tweets, but it makes them angry that there are people like Intensity, like me, like Babylon Bee. It makes them angry that exists on Twitter. No, that should be banned. And if you don't ban that, I'm quitting Twitter. Because they can just, like I say, you can follow the people you want to follow. You never have to see Intensity or me or Babylon Bee or libs of TikTok.
My instinct is sort of, for my purposes, and I'm a small fish, not a big fish, Twitter's fine. I agree with Matt Iglesias. It hasn't been that much difference. I sense it's a little freer. I sense the ceiling has been lifted, but I'm not really attracting that many people. I've gained 100 followers. Very excited about that. And I just don't think it's that bad. I think Musk hasn't screwed it up. He hasn't really made it that much better. But it's okay.
Okay, I'm just going to accuse you of sucking up to Musk right now, hoping he won't shadow ban you by pretending it isn't a total disaster.
Well, I've been known to do that.
I don't know if you remember. One of the really fun things about Twitter back when Twitter was fun, after Peter Thiel destroyed Gawker and the whole story came out, all these liberal journalists, I don't know if they were all liberals, but probably, they all started tweeting, I think Peter Thiel is the handsomest, smartest person I have ever seen. Which was pretty clever. Okay, let's see. Do you have anything else on this I want to say? Oh, I was dying to ask you about this. Two of them.
So when the Cowboys were playing the 49ers a few days ago, I went to the Coogee Sports Bar. I thought, let's have a big communal experience. And I was worried that it would sell out, that it would be packed and I wouldn't be able to get in. This is how out of touch with reality. So I get to the Coogee Sports Bar, and I am the only customer there. Right, this is 10 minutes before the game kicks off. I am the only customer there. And people ask me, oh, where do you plan to, watch these, great, NFL games? And I said, I'm going to go to the Coogee Sports Bar. And so I was anticipating, running into a lot of my mates there, making new friends, that, a bunch of Americans would show up and, it'd just be a riotous time. Well, I get to the Coogee Sports Bar, right? No one's there, right? The Cincinnati Bengals defeat of the Buffalo Bills has concluded, and they're only showing the NFL game on like a small side screen, and they're playing music, so you can't hear any commentary. They're just playing music, and on the big screen is the Australian Open. So before I start spending the big bucks on Coke Zero, I asked them, oh, can you put on the 49er versus Dallas game? And I said, no, can you put on the gridiron game on the main screen? And they tell me, no, management decision, right? On the main screen, it's going to be Australian Open tennis. So it's kind of hard for me to imagine, because I just find American sports absolutely captivating, particularly the National Football League. And it's kind of amazing that when the Super Bowl is played, you'll only have about 5 million people outside of North America who are going to watch the Super Bowl live. So when the World Cup final is played, you'll have about 2 billion people around the world watching live. But when you have, American baseball, American basketball, or American gridiron football televised live, you'll only have like 1 million, 2 million other people around the world. So it's the American century yet again, but not with regard to sports. So the world's sports still overwhelmingly English.
Coming up.
Okay, go ahead.
Number one, is the 2024 Senate contest really so favorable to the GOP? I had thought it was. You apparently do not think so. So I'm dying to know.
No, I mean it's the press is saying, well, the Republicans didn't do well at this last thing, but they look at the number of of seats that have to be defended, and they sort of instinctively go to the Democrats are defending more seats, so it's obviously this is the Republicans' big chance, and the Democrats are in deep trouble. Look at the list of the eight most vulnerable Democratic senators: Kyrsten Sinema, open seat in Michigan; John Tester, Jackie Rosen in Nevada; Sherrod Brown in Ohio; Casey in Pennsylvania; Manchin in West Virginia; Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin. Those are easily seats that the Democrats could win. The Republicans could go 0 for 8 in these seats. It's like it could easily be a repeat of 2022, where the Republicans don't gain any. Those aren't easy seats. There's not an abject loser like Jones in Alabama in the bunch. They're all people who are at least going to get 48%, and they might get 51%.
Oh, I see.
Sherrod Brown has won difficult races before. Tester has run at least two difficult races.
So on the plane over, I watched a terrific Indian film called 83. So it came out in 2021. It was about India winning the 1983 World Cup of cricket, the 60-over one-day version of cricket. And I just love underdog sports dramas. I don't remember ever being disappointed by an underdog sports film. And until 1983, in this particular World Cup, India had never even won a limited overs one-day game, except in a match against East Africa, and there's no country East Africa. It was just a bunch of Indians living in East Africa who played the Indian team. So the West Indies were the dominant cricket team, and these matches for the 1983 World Cup of cricket were played in England. West Indies were the overwhelming favorite. They just had this killer pace attack. They're bowling the ball at 100 miles an hour. And most of the batsmen, have very little equipment. I mean, you look at it, and it's kind of horrifying how the batsmen are getting hit by a cricket ball, which is about as hard as a baseball. Sometimes traveling at 100 miles an hour, and they don't even have a proper helmet on. So what was revealing, in particular about this movie 83, is that India was in the grip of all sorts of, racial, religious, ethnic violence. And so, generally speaking, it was Muslims versus Hindus. And, all over the country, there were these, outbreaks of ethnic violence. And then when India gets through to the semifinals, the Prime Minister of India, as portrayed in this fictionalized movie, says, hey, we need to get the whole country rallying around the India cricket team. Let's make sure everyone can see it. So they take steps so that even people in rural areas can watch the cricket. And the movie shows Muslims and Hindus sitting down together to support the Indian cricket team. So sports is a great way to connect people, like even antisocial losers, even people who are habitually awkward around themselves, let alone other people, can connect. It's so easy to connect via, just a moderate amount of sports fandom. If your country, right, is playing in, the World Cup of soccer or the World Cup of cricket, right, it's contagious. Like all sorts of people around you are wrapped. And so the normal, ethnic and religious conflicts that may go on in your society are going to be pushed to the margins when your country's focus is instead on sports. So one, it saves a lot of lives because a lot of people who are incredibly lonely and isolated can finally connect with other people because it takes very little effort to connect with others when there's a sports mania sweeping your nation. So it gives people human connection and meaning and purpose. Two, it gives people connection, meaning, and purpose that transcends, typical ethnic and religious bigotries. So it's a great nationalism force. Nationalism is what makes, national sports so much fun. When you see Iceland playing in the, European Cup for soccer, defeating England, and the whole nation of Iceland, uniting behind their soccer team, right? When you can bring people together and give them something, a shared experience, like a shared locus of attention, then a shared experience that then connects people. And when you connect people and give them a shared locus of attention, you energize people. And who doesn't need more energy and connection? And so out of that shared locus of attention, that energy, all right, that connection, that growth in nationalism, you also always get an ethic where people tend to take, better care of their in-group. So people will increase in their in-group identity. So India had all these problems, and the film also emphasizes kind of a chip on a shoulder Indian nationalism. So it portrays the English and non-Indians frequently as being snooty and smug and superior and taunting and victimizing. So you can't have in-group identity without a substantial component of victimization. So you often hear rhetoric, you should never feel like a victim, or being a victim sucks. Excessive amount of victimization usually doesn't serve you, but a moderate amount. So you see, how Indians got a chip on their shoulder because they felt they were being talked down to by the English and by other countries, and nobody expected anything of them in this cricket tournament. So a moderate chip on your shoulder, a small, mild chip on your shoulder will frequently serve you, right? You're frequently better off with a mild chip on your shoulder than if you have no chip on your shoulder. Because if you have a mild chip on your shoulder, that will provide you with better relationships with other people in your in-group. It will provide you a stronger in-group identity, which will give you more clarity and purpose in your life. And you'll get along better with the people who are most copacetic with you. So mild, moderate chip on your shoulder, that's frequently a good thing. And that's displayed throughout this movie. So terrific underdog sports movie, 1983. Putin agrees he loves sports, wants it to be apolitical. Anything when you can unite people, get people participating in something, even if it's just watching, get people to share a focus of attention. Like even if you would just go marching with other blokes, right, you would get energy from that, and you would get a sense of connection if you possibly could get on the same page with other people. And out of that, marching around on a playing field, right, you would then develop an ethic because you would start to bond with people. Would I go to a sports bar in LA? I think I've only done it once. Oh no, I've done it once since 2008. So do you remember November 2007? The New England Patriots were undefeated, and the Dallas Cowboys only had one loss. So it was something like the 8-0 Patriots were traveling to Dallas to take on the 7-1 Cowboys, and it wasn't being shown over the air in Los Angeles. So I went to that heterosexual sports bar in West Hollywood that used to have those horrible signs, no FAGGOTS allowed, disavow, Bonnie's Beanery. So I went there to, watch the Cowboys lose to the Patriots, but so much energy. It's just a packed house. I need to get out there, spend more time in sports bars, or just more time connecting with other people, because it can be awkward at first, and it can be scary, and you can, feel like a loser on the outside, and it's unfamiliar. That's often how I experience it. But there can be a barrier of entry that can be real. But if you push through that, there can be very substantial rewards. So the movie's called 1983. It's an Indian film. Thumbs up from 40. Right, a brewery's anti-violence mission was complicated by a killing. Pretty shocking. It's from the New Yorker.
Before issuing a public statement the day after the murders. In the statement, he described Williams, whom he admitted he did not know, as a young woman with her whole life ahead of her. He described Tyson as a friend and as one of the incredible and selfless people at True whose work had undoubtedly saved countless lives. He noted that Tyson was not the first person connected with True to have been killed, and acknowledged that he had not commented publicly about the previous deaths. I just have reached a point, he wrote, and True Colors has reached a point where I think others need to begin to understand. The story that Taylor tells about his company begins with the shooting. It started about 2.5 years ago. He told a conference of entrepreneurs in Raleigh in 2018, when, 2 days before Christmas, there was a 16-year-old that got shot in a drive-by and killed about, 6 or 7 blocks up from my office. This happened on Castle Street, near downtown. The victim was a high school student named Shane Simpson. I didn't even know we had gangs involved in Wilmington, Taylor said. I live in a gated community, and we have different kinds of gangs there. Taylor is 61, but he speaks and dresses like a younger man, favoring F-bombs and flannel shirts with rolled-up sleeves. He grew up in Richmond.
Okay, interesting article in the New Yorker. Brewery's anti-violence mission complicated by a killing. Who knew that when you employ members of rival gangs, that doesn't exactly conduce to peace and love? All right, Tucker Carlson says Antifa's back in force.
But first, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. Whatever happened to Antifa? Ever wonder that? The shadowy, heavily armed left-wing militia group, the guys dressed like stormtroopers in black masks. You remember them, of course, well from the summer of 2020. They burned our cities that year, churches and police stations and courthouses. Now, the point of the violence they committed, the extensive violence and the killings they committed, was to defeat Donald Trump, make the country so chaotic that voters would want to change. And they were effective in doing that, so effective that Kamala Harris herself raised money to bail them out of jail. In the end, Antifa played a pivotal role in our presidential election that year, more so than any other organized bloc of voters. Then, the moment Joe Biden was inaugurated, Antifa seemed to disappear. Nobody asked any questions about where they went, much less about who they were or who was paying them. They'd serve their purpose, and then they left. So in retrospect, it's very clear who Antifa was and is. Antifa is the armed instrument of the permanent Democratic establishment in Washington. Their job is to mobilize when politically necessary. Now, this is a new thing in the United States, but political militia are a common feature in third world politics. They're a staple in Haiti. In our country, however, only one party has them, the Democratic Party. They're the only ones with armed militia in the street. So with that in mind, it's interesting to note that Antifa is back in force. And that's probably not a very good sign for Joe Biden. If nothing else, Antifa has a solid track record of getting rid of sitting presidents. Here's a report from Fox 5 in Atlanta over the weekend.
Police arrested 6 people in the violent protest that left several buildings damaged and a police car destroyed after it was set on fire. Downtown Atlanta erupted into a scene of chaos Saturday night. As a protest took a violent turn, at least 3 buildings were damaged when rioters threw bricks and rocks, shattering windows. At least 2 police cars were targeted, one even lit on fire. Atlanta police say within 2 blocks of the protesters starting their destruction, they dispersed the crowd. 6 people were arrested. All of them are facing 8 charges, including domestic terrorism and arson. Only one is a Georgia resident.
Unleash the wackos! Somebody has unleashed the wackos. There's always a pretext for this. There's always a story they tell you to pretend it's spontaneous. It just happened. They just got so mad that they flew in from all over the country to stage a riot. Now, the story behind this riot, the one you're seeing on TV, is that a guy called Tortuguita, apparently an Antifa environmentalist, a person who uses they, it as pronouns, decided to shoot a state trooper in Georgia, and then the cops shot back and killed it in response. So that's the story they're telling to explain the riots. It doesn't make a lot of sense, actually, but everyone in the media is running with this, CNN included and especially. CNN, in fact, turned to a freelance reporter called David Peisner to explain exactly what happened this weekend in Atlanta. Watch this.
There's a real blurring of the lines in the use of the word violence. Is property destruction violence? To some people, it certainly is. But this idea that breaking windows or other acts of property destruction are the same as actual violence against humans it's kind of a dangerous and slippery concept. You keep using these words, violent, and it gives the impression, I mean, the only violence or the only acts of violence against people that I saw were actually police tackling protesters.
Why does every neoliberal talk like a sociology professor at a community college? You ever notice that? So that's David Peisner, identified by CNN as a freelance journalist, explaining that actually it's not really violence because it's against property. So when they burn your house down, it's not violence. It's not violence. It's always the same script. Remember when Ali Velshi stood in front of a burning police station in Minneapolis and told you the protests were, quote, not generally speaking unruly, except for, of course, the torch police station right behind us. Or when CNN told us the riots in Kenosha were fiery but mostly peaceful. Meanwhile, people were being killed. They're still saying it, but this time they're even lazier and more corrupt. That freelance reporter, David Peisner, you just saw on CNN, is not actually a reporter. He's a professional Antifa apologist. He is a fellow traveler for Antifa, and we're not just guessing at that. This week, he went on Twitter to raise money for Antifa, including a GoFundMe for Tortuguita, the attempted cop killer with the confusing pronouns. That's the guy CNN is calling a reporter, freelance reporter. So the question is not, is CNN dishonest? Oh, they'll say anything. The question is why this particular brand of dishonesty? Why are the same people who warned you about right-wing extremists walking around the Capitol running cover for domestic terrorism in the city they're based in? Keep in mind, this is CNN saying this, and it was CNN whose headquarters, its world headquarters, CNN Center in Atlanta, was destroyed by Antifa in May of 2020 after St. George Floyd died. Remember that? In case you don't, here's the tape. So that day in May of 2020, Antifa actually got inside CNN Center. They smashed through the windows and went right in. So if you're CNN, you'd say, well, look, we're going to have to put Antifa on the do not promote list. We just can't run cover for the people who smashed the windows of our world headquarters. But they are. They're doing it anyway. Why are they doing that? Because CNN is not actually on the left. They have no ideology or beliefs. CNN is above all and always foursquare on the side of the people in charge. Always. That's who they run cover for. So they're not actually defending Antifa, they're defending the people who benefit from Antifa. And that's the Democratic Party. And in case you doubt the connection, consider Representative Catherine Clark of Massachusetts, she, her. Catherine Clark is one of the most senior Democrats in the House of Representatives. In fact, she's the minority whip. She's the one who was so worried about climate change. Remember, she told you that her kids are having nightmares about it? Didn't stop her from buying a $1 million oceanfront home, but whatever. So Catherine Clark's own son, Jared Dowell, was rioting along with Antifa in Boston on Saturday night. He was vandalizing a monument on Boston Common when police tried to arrest him. Jared Dowell and other protesters then assaulted the police, causing the specific officer to bleed from the nose and mouth. Oh, that was her son. So Catherine Clark was forced to issue a statement about this, of course. By the way, stop talking about her personal life. If you knew what the personal lives of the people who run the Democratic Party are actually like, you would understand their politics much better. So Catherine Clark issues a statement and refers to her son as her, quote, daughter, of course, and wrote that, quote, this is a very difficult time in the cycle of joy and pain in parenting. It's just, part of the cycle where your adult son pretends to be a woman and attacks police officers. Totally normal. It's just part of the cycle of parenting. Yeah. Again, if you knew the details of their personal lives, you would understand their politics. This is the party of weak men and unhappy women. But what you have in effect here is the official endorsement of domestic terrorism from the highest level of the Democratic Party. And why wouldn't you? Again, this is their militia. These are their state-sanctioned shock troops, and they are effectively immune from criticism. So you go to jail for owning a 10-round magazine, but they get to do whatever they want. Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray, who runs the FBI, are making certain that every last January 6th defendant spends years in jail. Their lives are destroyed on the no-fly list. And yet Antifa terrorists get released almost as soon as they're arrested. This weekend in Atlanta, the police arrested the 22-year-old son of a surgeon in Kennebunkport, Maine, called Francis Carroll. Now, in case you're wondering who these people are, well, they come from the key Democratic demographic, which of course is not people of color, working people. That's nonsense. The key Democratic demographic is upscale professionals and their lunatic children. So this kid grew up in a $2 million mansion, pictures of him on his father's yacht. He was arrested on domestic terrorism charges a month ago in Atlanta. He assaulted police officers and terrorized residents. Is he still there? No! He got out of jail immediately. So then apparently he went again to an Antifa riot. This weekend in Atlanta, police say Carroll went out and committed some more domestic terrorism, including arson. So why does this kid, the rich kid, get off when the people who showed up at the Capitol, consistent with their constitutional rights to complain about what really did seem like fraud in the 2020 election, they went to jail? Well, have you ever checked the percentage of January 6th defendants who've experienced a personal bankruptcy? Much higher than average. These were actual working class people, deeply frustrated, completely out of options, and unheard by everyone in Washington. It's not an excuse for the vandalism some of them committed, but it tells you it's a very different group of people. They didn't go to Middlebury.
Oh, I am back in Los Angeles, and I am wondering why can't we have nice things? There's a Sydney Botanical Gardens yesterday.
G'day mate, 40 here. It's really weird walking through the Royal Botanical Gardens here in Sydney. Like, where's the crime? Where's the dysfunction? Like, we're right by the Central Business District, right by the Opera House, but like, where's the rape? Looking into the bushes, I don't see any raping going on. I don't see any grievous bodily harm being inflicted. Like, where's the trash? Where's the graffiti? Where are the homeless, the drug addicts, the panhandlers? Like, where are all the people who let me know that I'm in a big city, that I'm in the States? Like, how do you maintain all these delicate ecosystems? How do you maintain all this exquisite plant life and animal life? Where's the blaring rap music? Where's the blaring mariachi music? Where are the...
So this is a video that I took yesterday in the Royal Botanical Gardens in Sydney near the Opera House.
Vibrant gangs of youths wilding. This is really weird. I'm in the Royal Botanical Gardens and there's no bloody wilding going on. How can I be in a central business district of Australia's biggest city? There's not even any wilding going on. Hey, where are the youths rampaging and destroying? Where's the graffiti? Like, where's everything that makes, vibrant big city America so vibrant? Just where's the vibrance here? It just doesn't seem very vibrant. I mean, we've got tons of diversity, but no vibrance, Los Angeles style or New York style, right? You've got that big park in Manhattan, right? You get lots of wilding and raping and all sorts of horrible stuff going on. And where are the alarms? Where are the police sirens? Where are the ambulance sirens? Where are the police helicopters like shining a light? Where are the bullhorns? Where are the angry protesters? I've been in Australia for 3 months. No one said anything to me about how Black Lives Matter. Do Black Lives Matter to you, Karen? Do Black Lives Matter to you? Where's the concern? Where's the activism? Where's the apocalyptic sense that the world's coming to an end, that the country's convulsing into a civil war? Instead, we're right on the verge of Australia Day. People are just happy, going for a walk with their family and friends, stretching their legs, taking a break from work, going back to school in a week or so.
So, which way, Western man? Which way? What do you want? What do you want more of?
Do Black Lives matter to you? Do Black Lives matter to you? Do Black Lives matter, all right, Karen? Fucking white piece of shit, you little fucking cussy ass bitch! Oh yeah, you wanna fucking go, Karen? No! No! Until Black Lives matter! Until Black Lives matter, no life matters! Black, white, yellow... That is not our fight! Until Black lives mean something to this country! No. No.
She ain't going nowhere though. She not going nowhere.
Until Black...
What you gonna do? She not going nowhere. Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Do Black...
We're coming back here like a fucking 100 times. I am so mad. I am so fucking mad at these people. They don't do this to fucking me. We're gonna fucking ritualistically humiliate them. I am coming back here every fucking weekend if I have to. Like, this is never over. I win, they fucking lose. That's how the world fucking works. Little fucking kites. They get ruled by people like me. Little fucking octoroons. My ancestors fucking enslaved those pieces of fucking shit. I rule the fucking world. Those pieces of shit get ruled by people like me. They look up and see a face like mine looking down at them. That's how the fucking world works. We are gonna destroy this fucking town.
Yeah, so which way, Western man?
Such a shame that Australia lacks the vibrancy of American big cities. It's just so quiet and tranquil and people enjoying themselves. This isn't a big city. Like, where's the fear? I'm just not detecting any fear. What the hell? Where's the fear, guys? Where's the dread? Where's the worry just written all over people's faces? Like, how do you maintain all this nice stuff? How do you maintain all this delicate life? How do you maintain pleasant, sensitive public spaces? I mean, if this was Los Angeles, all this would be torn up, ripped up, graffitied, trashed. Where's the trash after a good quinceañera? No one's blaring any rap music, man. That's weird. Like, where are the packs of youths making life miserable for everyone else? I mean, how does Australia get to have nice things? Like, what is it about Australians that just makes them so nice and law-abiding? Original Australians came here as convicts. Yeah, how do they turn into such a law-abiding people? Yeah, I see tons of diversity. It seems to be a type of diversity that works. So apparently there's some diversity that works. Other types of diversity lead to conflagration. So there's a sign, keep out of the flowers. And it's amazing people obey the directives. What kind of society is this where people follow the rules? Where people don't just trash public spaces for the fun of it? Now we've got all this diversity of plant life. We can only thrive because we have a cooperative citizenry and we have law enforcement and willing to incentivize people to follow the law. Where's the anger? Where's the tension and stress written all over people's faces? Where's that haunted feeling that you don't have any health insurance, that you're in desperate straits, that you might be going homeless? Where's the sense that you're living life on the edge? That the game's been rigged against you? We're living in the end times. It just doesn't seem to be any of that. Where's the moral panic? Where are the hysterias? Where are the women with blue hair? I don't see as many piercings. I see a lot more piercings in Los Angeles. Now there are a lot more tattoos in Australia compared to 30, 40 years ago. But they haven't kept up with the piercings. Like, where's the anger at society, anger at the parents, anger at the patriarchy? Where's the bloody anger, mate? Where are the expressions of rage? Where's the senseless destruction? Where's the tearing up of everything that's pretty and sensitive and sweet and delicate, just for the fun of destruction? Where are the super predators? Maybe the super predators are behind the bushes here. Maybe I'm just missing them. How do they get to have nice public facilities that aren't trashed and used for drug deals and prostitution? Where are the homeless encampments? Where are the strung out addicts and alcoholics? Where are the runaway kids? And even the animals, even the ducks don't have fear. How come you don't have any fear, mate? Where's your sense of fear? Don't you have any sense of danger? You don't seem afraid, mate. I just wonder, can Los Angeles sustain something like this?
Man, so boring. I mean, why can't we have, exciting, Black Lives Matter action?
I'm at the point where I'm ready to put these police in the fucking grave. I'm at the point where I want to burn the fucking White House down. I want to take it to the senators. I want to take it to the Congress. I want to take the fight to them. And at the end of the day, if they ain't gonna hear us, we burn them the fuck down. I'm one that talk real shit. I talk it in New York, and I talk it in D.C. The same way I fuck police up in New York, I fuck cops up here in D.C. The same way I bust police in the head in New York, I bust police in the head in D.C. Now, it's a lot of people, and I'm going to be honest, it's a lot of people that's on this front line. And one of the things that I always say, don't get on this fucking front line if you ain't going to fucking fight. Don't get on this front line if you ain't going to take no hate. Don't get on this front line when the police fucking push up, you push back. If you won't be on this front line and them racist ass, nasty ass, punk ass fucking police is pushing up, you push them.
Wow, powerful stuff.
Idaho is not as racist as everyone thinks it is. So we are out in the middle of the desert. We're driving along, and I see a car that's broken down, and there's a black man. Now, there is not a whole lot of black people here in Idaho, right?
Not a lot.
So I'm thinking nobody else is probably going to stop to help this man. So I'm just like, you know what? We should stop. We should stop and help this man.
No, we shouldn't.
I'm like, what? And she's like, oh. I was like, no one else is going to stop.
Not my problem.
And I'm like, come on, we got to help this guy out.
No, we don't.
See,
no. The fuck we do not.
So see, I just got to say, like, right now, like, she said we already had too many black people in the car.
Niggas already in this little vicinity. It's too many.
She said ninjas.
Ninjas.
That was ninjas for anyone that she has a speech impediment. That was
I a little slow.
Anyway, she wouldn't let me stop. She wouldn't let me help the guy.
No. You know how much hotter it would be in this vehicle if we put that black man in here.
And then I just know her because I know she's gonna be like, well, what do we get robbed?
And if we did, I'd blame it all on him because you was the one.
We'd be sitting there and I'd just be looking over like, okay, that was my bad.
Yep, your fault.
I don't know what I just can't deal with these racists. These racists over here.
Racist people out
Racists.
There. Tell me about it. They just rude. Just disrespectful.
Now, what she doesn't know, we're driving back the same way. If he's still there, I'm stopping.
He can try.
I'm stopping.
I'm going to push the gas pedal.
There's people walking around being happy. I mean, do we need a common culture in Los Angeles? A respect for private property, public property, for plant diversity, human biodiversity. Like, can we have a common culture where people who are predatory and destructive, they're removed from polite society so that good people can enjoy public spaces like these? So I am like a quarter mile from the central business district. So you've got all these skyscrapers looming above Royal Botanical Gardens. So you've got the hustle and bustle of the big city in one of the safest cities in the world. Right? This isn't Tokyo. This isn't Hong Kong. Right? This isn't one of those law-abiding East Asian communities. This is a fair dinkum Australian community. Beautiful flowers, luscious wildlife. And it's just a welcome place. Got birds and ducks.
Yeah, pretty boring, man. Where's the vibrancy?
They said grab her by the pussy. Well, she's a cat, so no. I'm saying touch. No. That's equivalent, you know.
Baked Alaska.
Are you single? Yeah. Can I get your number? No? Not together. Damn, why not? She's 13. How old are you? No, that's a lie. Really? Yes. Come here. Let's go. Really? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. 6/18/04. Yeah.
Ebony and ivory living together in perfect harmony. I wonder if we can learn anything from what the Australians have constructed here. We can take back to America's big cities. Or is what Australians have constructed here only possible with a certain mix of people, certain social arrangements, certain immigration policies, certain law and order policies? Now, could we have all of this while allowing millions of illegal immigrants to pour over the border? Like, somehow I don't think that we could enjoy all this if you had millions of illegal immigrants. Okay, so imagine that there was a border like 5 miles from here. Millions of illegal immigrants were pouring through. You think that these Royal Botanical Gardens look like this if you had hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants pouring through, staying the night, using the public facilities, doing drug deals, murdering and raping, bringing their problems with them, bringing drugs, bringing crime. They're rapists, and some, I assume, are nice people. And this is a sanctuary from illegal aliens, sanctuary from super predators, sanctuary from the revolutionary mindset, from anarchist and communist agitation. Maybe when you see all this, you see white supremacy. Is this the beautiful false face of white supremacy? Yeah, sure, it all looks very pretty, but what about the patriarchal ugliness behind it? The Christian supremacism, the white racialism, the exclusive immigration policies that allow, sure, this is all very beautiful, It's hiding the ugly face of white supremacy. For your well-being, we ask that you keep to the paths and avoid touching the plants. So if we had millions of illegal immigrants passing through who weren't able to read these notices, or even if they were able to read them, do you think they'd respect them? They don't respect the law of the land, coming here illegally, but you think with all this delicate wildlife, this delicate diversity, to millions of illegal immigrants pouring through here, do you think they'd be very respectful of this? I mean, could you have this on the southern border of the United States? Is this the sort of thing you can only have in places very exclusive like Martha's Vineyard, Manhattan, Beverly Hills? Just like humbled by all this beauty. It kind of reminds you of your proper place in the universe. Like it centers you, it cleanses you, realigns you. And doggone it, makes me a little angry that we can't have more places like this in Los Angeles. So many of our beautiful public spaces have been trashed, filled with litter. We have gangs, astronomical rates of criminal activity, drug dealing, violence, rape. Because we don't lock these people up like we used to. Right, in the 1990s, we were going in the right direction. People who did heinous things were put away in prison, kept away from decent people. And now you can steal up to $950 in California and it's only a misdemeanor. And if you had those kind of rules here, you think that you'd be able to have these oriental gardens, these botanical gardens. All this beauty and curated biodiversity. I walk through here and I just kind of mourn what California's lost. California used to be America's last best hope. Just a great place to be an average bloke. Land of opportunity. Into the 1960s, you didn't have to lock your doors at night or lock your car doors in the San Fernando Valley. That's all been trashed, thrown away under an influx of illegal immigrants. Now I can't even talk to half the people in Los Angeles because they don't speak English. And when Sam Yorty was defeated by Bradley, mayor of Los Angeles, circa 1970, everything started going downhill after that. We had Richard Riordan for 2 terms in the 1990s. He's a moderate Republican. Right. He got the city back on track. We had our New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, America's biggest cities. How steadily they've gone downhill since the 1960s, with only brief interregnum in the Republicans. Think about how Mayor Giuliani turned around New York City. Mayor Bloomberg did a pretty good job too, and all that progress was trashed under Bill de Blasio. You build something special and sacred. Then you see all the gains dissipated as you abandon the rule of law. Start incentivizing antisocial behavior by not punishing it, by subsidizing it. This were Los Angeles, it'd be filled with homeless, with derelicts, with drug addicts, with criminals, with gangs, with youths, with joggers. I haven't seen one policeman since I've been walking around here for the past 2 hours. It's not like you've got the oppressive police monitoring every corner, every alley, every plant. Where are the gangs tagging their territory? Where are the rap artists? It's the vibrant news hanging out CDs of their rap music and then accosting you for money. Where are the fights between the hobos and the derelicts? Where are the stabbings? You've got all this cover, all these bushes and trees behind which to do dark deeds. I don't know, here at the Royal Botanical Gardens I don't see a lot of dark deeds going on. I just see fond memories and freaks of nature. Kind of makes you want to go troppo, eh, mate? So you don't really have the tropics in the United States, but you have them here in Australia. Just like you, every plant has a family, and family members are easy to spot if you know what to look for. Wow, that sounds like stereotyping. Stereotyping plants, stereotyping people. Can't have stereotypes around here, mate. And the battle against ignorance and bigotry and stereotypes is never won. You have to wage it anew each day in new ways. All these people thinking that they can just stereotype plant families, animal families, that different subspecies have different characteristics. And this hateful idea that some dogs are more dangerous than other dogs. Some dogs are more intelligent than other dogs. And some mixtures of subspecies are more conducive to harmony than other mixtures. Oh, the battle of this kind of stereotypical racist, bigoted, ignorant thinking. It's never won, mate. It's never won. So these baby eels squirm across the damp grass at night from the harbor. Then you'll see the fluffy ducklings taken by an eel. It's the way of nature. Ducks in turn find baby eels a tasty meal. Look at all these ducks and birds and plants living side by side. Can't we all just get along? did they create Sydney as one of the safest cities in the world? Like, what are the ingredients? Can they be reproduced in the United States? Sure feels like people in Australia are doing something right. How did they create this harmonious, cohesive, high-trust society? Right? You see people clutching their purses and their bags for fear that they're going to be ripped out of their hands. Like, where are the purse snatchers? I don't see any purse snatchers here. I do see a few joggers, but they don't seem to be invading construction sites and stealing things. This has more of the ethos of that Asian student on college campus who said, "This is library. People study here. This is library. This is botanical gardens. People are kind and pleasant, harmonious here. No purse snatching, no rioting."
This is 40 show. We are nice and law-abiding here. This is 40 show. Chat says, do Australians make New Year's resolutions? Probably, but it's not nearly as big a deal in Australia as it is in America. So America is much more individualist, striving type of society. This is library, and this is the 40 show. So there was an American who built a lot of beautiful parks. His name was Robert Moses, and he is profiled in the 1974 book by Robert Caro, The Power Broker. Now, this is what's so terribly disturbing about Robert Moses. You may not realize this, but he was a racist. He was a big, bad racist. So Theodore Roosevelt wouldn't interfere even when he found out that Robert Moses, who's Jewish, so you'd think he'd understand oppression and racism. But Roosevelt wouldn't intervene when he found out that Robert Moses was discouraging black people from using many of his state parks. So apparently underlying Robert Moses' strikingly strict policing for cleanliness in his parks was a deep distaste for the public that was using them. He doesn't love the people. He's doing all these things for the welfare of the people, but Robert Moses would denounce the common people terribly. To him, they were lousy, dirty people throwing bottles all over Jones Beach. I'll get them. I'll teach them. He loves the public, but not his people. The public is just the public. It's just a great amorphous mass to him. It needs to be bathed. It needs to be aired. It needs recreation, but not for personal reasons, just to make it a better public. So Robert Moses began taking measures to limit use of his parks. Can you believe that? I mean, how racist is that? He started limiting the use of parks. He tried to discourage people that he thought were, he started antisocial. This is library.
This is library. This is library. This is library.
Hey. Oh, New York Post. Now, great. Now, media hits. If I get a copyright bother, I'm going to blame it on you. All right, Robert Moses, man. This guy created beautiful parks, but he was racist, right? He restricted the use of state parks by the people who he thought would damage them, such as poor people, lower middle class people. He limited access to the parks by rapid transit. Can you believe that? And he considered black people inherently dirty. Wow. Buses carrying black groups were shunted to the furthest reaches of the parking area. Black people were discouraged from using white beach areas, such as the best beaches. He was convinced that black people did not like cold water, so he kept the temperature at the pool at Jones Beach deliberately icy to keep black people out. Negro civic groups from the hot New York City slums began to complain about this treatment. Roosevelt found out that Bob Moses was trying to discourage large Negro parties from picnicking at Jones Beach, attempting to divert them to some of the other state parks. So Robert Moses, crazy man, he thought that what black people like to do was mostly sing and dance. So when he had opening ceremonies for the Colonial Park Pool in Harlem, he included an exhibition by Bojangles Bill Robinson, a black tap dancer. He built one pool in Harlem, and he determined it was going to be the only pool that black people, he classed Puerto Ricans as black, were going to use. He didn't want them mixing with white people in other pools because he was afraid that trouble, fights, and riots would result. So he discouraged black people from using the Thomas Jefferson pool. He employed only white lifeguards in attendance. Man, the extent that this guy went, promoting this racist agenda. So he had this idea that black people don't like cold water. So he kept swimming pools that black people might like to use, kept them icy cold. Other swimming pools he kept at comfortable 70 degrees. So whether it was with the temperature or by flagging or the glowering looks flung at black people by the park department attendants and lifeguards, right, you could go to all these pools near the slums, near the black slums, and you would not see a single non-Caucasian face. So black people lived only a half a mile away, would travel instead to Colonial Park 3 miles away, instead of using their neighborhood pool. And then in the Harlem section of Riverside Park, the wrought iron trellises of the park's playhouses and comfort stations, right? Normally he'd decorate them with designs like curling waves, but in Harlem, he decorated them with monkeys. So Robert Moses regarded black people as that scum floating up from Puerto Rico that was befouling his parks.
So individuals and communities need guardrails. Right? People need to be incentivized to stay on the straight and narrow. And when they start acting in an antisocial manner, they need to be held accountable as quickly as possible at appropriate levels of deterrence so that you can maintain civilizations like this. If there's no deterrence for trashing the Royal Botanical Gardens, I wouldn't be here to enjoy. There's no deterrence for seizing someone's purse, stealing someone's pizza, for invading someone's home, for spray painting. Right. No graffiti. How do they manage to create this safe space with no graffiti? This doesn't look like Mexico. This doesn't look like Central or South America. Doesn't look like New York City, Los Angeles, or Chicago. No, it's different. How do you develop a community that's so pro-social, high trust, socially cohesive, altruistic? willing to sacrifice for the greater good, sense of unifying culture. Australia has a dominant culture. Everybody says Merry Christmas or Merry Chrissy. You're not greeted by Happy Holidays. And there's one dominant heritage, one dominant ethos, one dominant morality,
I don't know whether that's going to.
one dominant moral standard for behavior. So it is Wednesday Arvo. It's about 5:30 p.m. It's January 25, the day before Australia Day, 2023. Ride these beautiful ferries around for maximum price is about $15 Australian, which is currently about $11 American. You can take the ferry up to Parramatta, about a 45-minute journey. I ride the light rail and the trains and the buses all day for about $1. When you go to a pub or a convenience store, you don't get ripped off. Prices are pretty similar on a lot of goods wherever you are in Australia. So Australia has a federalist system, but you don't have the dramatic variety of the United States. Laws are still pretty similar throughout Australia, as opposed to the differences between New York City and Alabama and Mississippi and Arkansas and Seattle. Because there's one culture, it's a lot easier to get things done. People agree on more things. There's less need for culture war and conflict. This is a country too busy having fun to hate, mate. People just want to be with their friends and their family, make money, pursue their hobbies, enjoy their gorgeous public spaces. Australia's beaches are Australia's cathedrals. You get to have all these public works and public concerts, public goods. You have a country that's united around what's best for Australia. Australians aren't as outwardly patriotic as Americans, but they're much more cohesive, trusting, altruistic, and willing to work together for what's best for Australia. So Australians are nationalistic in their own way. For many Australians, particularly the least educated ones, if you're not Australian, you're nothing. Now, Australian elites and Australian university educated, they have a lot in common with the university educated.
So one thing that was driven home to me from my travels is frequently how much more trusting high IQ people are than midwits and low IQ people. Because high IQ people realize the tremendous price that one pays for breaking someone's trust. And so high IQ people much more likely to look for win-win solutions and much more likely to be open and trusting than, middle IQ and low IQ people. So one reason I live in Los Angeles is because of all the high IQ people that I know here. So I'm not particularly high IQ myself. I'm perhaps a standard deviation above average, but I get to have conversations with people who are 3 and 4 standard deviations above average in IQ. And that's what's thrilling for me. Some people would be like playing catch with Tom Brady or Mookie Betts, or shooting baskets with Michael Jordan, right? What's thrilling for me is talking to someone who's 3, 4, 5, deviations of IQ above the average. That's thrilling. And in a big city like Los Angeles, where the future is being created, you have a lot more access to that than in Sydney. Okay, here's final parts of my video from Australia's Royal Botanical Gardens and the Sydney Opera House. I took this yesterday.
Located throughout the First World. But most Australians don't go to university. So it used to be only up to about 5% of Australians went to university. Now that's being expanded to various forms of tertiary education. But it's still not a ridiculously high percentage as you find in the United States.
Still getting used to it. I'm not ready to give up my weekend.
That's the magnificent Sydney Harbour Bridge, Sydney Opera House. So Sydney is Australia's most diverse city, and it's also the city where it's the most difficult to make friends. So compared to other parts in Australia, that's a little less cohesive. And there's less volunteering in Sydney compared to other parts of Australia, so less altruism. More difficult to make friends. So Sydney is famous for how difficult it is to make friends, because I guess part of it is most residents of Sydney have grown up together, gone to school together, and so they hang out with that clique of people their entire lives. So Australia is also the most sexually segregated first world nation. So perhaps aside from the university crowd, men basically don't open up a conversation with women unless they're going to have a go. That's going to try to have a crack at her. And women very rarely will initiate any conversation with a bloke. Australia is still more traditional in its male-female roles. Men are much more expected to be the aggressor. So I noticed when I moved to America, how much more assertive and aggressive the women were. Much more willing to flirt with you and reach out to you and touch you and kiss you. Have a go. Americans much more enthusiastic, much more emotional, wear their hearts on their sleeve much more than Australians. So we're here in Sydney's eastern suburbs, so most people are pretty fit. You want to find fat Australians, you'll have to go inland. This is very expensive real estate. So the affluent tend to be slender The lower classes tend to be fat and stubby. I think the difference between Wayne Rooney, he's kind of short and stubby, and more aristocratic looking David Beckham, they're pretty much all soccer stars come from working class or lower middle class backgrounds. So the most common name that people use for each other in Australia is mate. You know, overwhelmingly men with men. It's, oh mate, or by the way mate, or could you help me mate, or what do you know mate, how's it going mate. So he speaks of genuine camaraderie and ease with each other. Now that can come with certain types of corruption and exclusion. It can be difficult to break through in Sydney and make friends, right? It's a lot easier to make friends in Sydney if you make friends with other immigrants, you know, people from South Africa, Central South America, Americans, North Americans, Asians, right? People who feel a bit excluded from the mainstream of Sydney residents who grew up here. Will, generally speaking, be a lot easier to make friends with, you know, fellow people on the fringe.
Video I took the day before yesterday, the edge of Sydney Harbour.
G'day mate, 40 here. Look at this lovely wedding cake cliff. So, hanging out in Royal National Park, just south of Cronulla, where you had the Cronulla riots about 15 years ago. And just thinking that you get much more of fatalism in Australia compared to America. So you're much more likely to encounter the idea, oh, you can't do anything about it, might as well just enjoy yourself, have a good time. Right? It's much more prevalent attitude in Australia than America. So Australia was founded by convicts, all right? They were sent out here against their will, and then they never had to fight for their freedom like the Yanks, right? So the Americans had the Revolutionary War. Had to fight for their freedom, and for Australians it was given to them by the British Commonwealth. And so I noticed that Australians and also the English are much more fatalistic, and Americans have much higher estimation about what they can do, right? Their own capabilities of like changing the government. So I don't think like a January 6th would happen nearly as easily in Australia as America, because January 6th was based on the notion that ordinary citizens could get together and do something about a system gone insane. There could be a new American Revolution, and there just isn't that same revolutionary zeal in Australia. G'day mate, 40 here, listening to a podcast on Richard Spencer's Substack, radixjournal.substack, The AI Illusion, recorded December 8, 2022. This is Mark Brahman speaking.
Understand your point. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, again, I think Christianity and Judaism, they are mystery religions, but implicit.
Mystery religions has a meaning. It means that you have to be an initiate to gain access to the mysteries of the religion. So Judaism is like the opposite of a mystery religion. It says the Torah is not far from you, it's very close to you, and yes, you can do it. So mystery religion refers to Hellenic and Greek religions, and Christianity has taken on some aspects of mystery religion, right? You get taken into the mystery of salvation when you believe in Jesus. Judaism's not a mystery religion, right?
They're positing a kind of breeding ideal. So in other words, Yahweh is effectively, when you read the Hebrew Bible, Yahweh is a very, he's certainly not Aryan. He's a very kind of Jewish character. He has a very kind of Jewish personality and character. And so that has a kind of race or ethnic forming consequence, right?
Yeah, but more than the Jewish conception of God, formed the Jews. All right, the Jews formed their religion from the culture and the talents of the Jewish people. Right, it wasn't a particular conception of God that formed the Jewish people.
When you worship a God like Yahweh, you sort of conform a race to that type. So in other words,
no, you don't form a race to that type. Right? That type resonates with certain conceptions of the world. Right? Judaism is not primarily a faith; it's primarily a tribal identity.
This might also be getting be sort of what Richard's getting at is that it's what we're talking about also is that the religion produces the type as opposed to the race, as opposed to the religion being a kind of what's the word? Excretion of the race. Like yeah. So
yeah, I would say the opposite is much more true. Like a particular people will develop, a particular understanding of reality. So let's posit the religious faith statement that God came down and gave the Torah to the Jews. But what the Jews then do with the Torah and how they implement it, how they study it, how they practice it, right? How they make it real and concrete in their lives, going to have a whole lot to do with the proclivities and talents and gifts of this particular people, rather than theological conceptions shaping this particular race.
The idea that the old sort of DR trope that culture comes from race, right? We're actually saying the reverse. That religion.
Yeah, I would say the old DR trope then is much more accurate.
Culture forms race. Yes. Now it may you could argue that there's a kind of chicken and egg relationship there, right? Because part of what we're trying to form, we're trying to recapture on some level we're trying to recapture an ancestor or a founder type, but we're trying to even improve on that, right? Because we want a type that is able to sustain civilization, sustain itself, and even improve itself, right? Yes. Not something that JF would like, I don't think, because it seems like he's anti.
JF got to repeat.
Yeah, he does seem to be in some curious way. But we're gonna have to compete with the AI. We're gonna have to coexist and compete with the AI. I need to actually read his book. Yeah,
The Revolutionary Phenotype. G'day mate, 40 here. So they're rehearsing for some hard rock concert in the background, and I had a hilarious live video going about an Australian Christmas carol. Aussies get ready for Christmas, and just as I was going live, the hard driving rock just ended. But at the Botanical Gardens here in Sydney, got some hard driving rock in the background as they rehearse for a big show, and thinking about how Richard Spencer's been on a tear the last few months, talk about how Republicans can't win without embracing the crazy, right? Only by embracing the crazy can they win. And right, that's fun, right? That's not the type of talking point you're going to get on Fox News. And Richard tends to state his opinions with great passion, and you sense that he really believes what he's saying. But what exactly does Richard know about winning? And I can't claim that I know a whole heck of a lot about winning either. But Richard does not have a track record of winning. He has a track record of losing. Almost every project he starts has gone downhill into the trash can. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, who Richard absolutely despises, right? Richard says, you like Christian nationalism? Christian nationalism means reigned by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. Which is a great line. Very thought-provocative comment. But you can despise her all you like. That Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be in a pretty powerful position. She's in good with Kevin McCarthy. She's on tap to sit in some powerful House committees. She won a resounding re-election. She has tempered some of the anti-Jewish things she used to say. Now she's condemning Nick Fuentes' anti-Semitism. So she's learning how to play the game. It reminds me of Robert Moses, right? There's a classic book about Robert Moses, came out in the 1970s, and he started out as such a young idealist, and as a pure idealist, he wasn't very successful. He just had failure after failure. Then, when he accepted the direction of Democratic Governor Al Smith, and he was willing to listen to people more experienced than him in the ways of winning in politics, he became a tremendous power broker. Robert Moses became perhaps the most powerful man in New York City government over the course of 50 years. Because he learned to play the game, learned to take advice, learned to take direction, learned to humble himself, to listen to people who might know more than he did, and he became a winner. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's no Robert Moses, but she's humbled herself to listen to other people. She's learning how to play the game, and she seems to be doing it effectively, while Lauren Boebert, who used to seem like the far more sane version of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert just barely won re-election. So success in politics does not depend upon the rationality of your ideology. It does not depend on the beauty of your prose, the profundity of your thought. There are a lot else figures into winning in politics beyond being able to mount comprehensive and thoughtful political philosophy. Just from my outside perspective, it sure seems to me like Marjorie Taylor Greene is winning, and Richard Spencer's had to subvert his ideology and turn it into a religion, Apollonianism, which is a more socially acceptable form of Nazism, but trying to do it under the disguise of religion so that he won't attract as much criticism and opposition. So he's learned to play by the rules of normal society. So to that extent, that's a win for him. His life seems easier. He seems much happier. He seems much more well balanced. He seems much more sober. He's cut way back on the alcohol. But he's essentially been driven out of politics. And so he is trying to channel his talents into forming a new religion. He's actually a fun and compelling political commentator. And so he does bring the contrarian hot takes on a regular basis in Twitter Spaces and on his Substack. And that's where he's so good. So I think it's vitally important that we put ourselves and other people in the correct genre. So it's
Whoa, That's going to do it for me. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.